The champagne bubbles tickle my nose as I study my reflection, wondering if brides are supposed to feel this happy or if I'm just being ridiculous. My hands shake slightly as I adjust the delicate lace veil, careful not to disturb the intricate updo that took Maria 2 hours to perfect. "Stop fidgeting, Lorelei," Marley says, batting my hands away. "You look perfect. Lee won't know what hit him." I catch her eye in the mirror and we both burst into giddy laughter. The bridal suite buzzes with activity. My mom fussing with flower arrangements, bridesmaids touching up lipstick, the photographer snapping candids. Everything feels surreal, like I'm floating through the best dream of my life. My phone buzzes on the vanity. Probably another well-wisher, but I check anyway. A Facebook notification. My stomach drops when I see it's a live video from Sloane. That's weird. She should be here helping me get ready. She's my maid of honor, after all. I tap play without thinking. The video is shaky at first, then stabilizes on, no. No. My brain refuses to process what I'm seeing. Lee's face, flushed and intense. Sloane's voice, breathy and intimate. "Tell me you love me. Tell me I'm the only one." "You know you are, baby." His voice is thick with desire. "It's always been you." The phone slips from my numb fingers, clattering on the marble floor. Someone asks if I'm okay. I can't breathe. The room spins as fragments of reality crash through my denial. Sloane's constant texts with Lee about wedding details. The way they'd both get quiet when I entered a room. All those late nights at the office they'd claim to be working. "Lorelei?" Marley's concerned face swims into view. "What's wrong?" I force myself to pick up the phone, to turn it so they can see. The video continues, brutal in its clarity. Lee and Sloane tangled together on rumpled sheets. Sheets I recognize from our bed. Her dark hair spilling across our pillows. His hands tracing paths on her skin that should have been meant for me. Oh my God. Marley's hand flies to her mouth. How long? "It's live," I whisper. The timestamp confirms it, streaming right now, less than an hour before I'm supposed to walk down the aisle. My best friend and my fiancé, broadcasting their betrayal to the world on my wedding day. The room erupts in chaos. My mom is crying. Someone's calling the wedding planner. I hear fragments of panicked conversation. Guests are already arriving. Can't reach Lee's phone. Need to make an announcement, but I'm frozen, watching the feed with horrible fascination as Sloane turns to face the camera directly. Her perfect red lips curve into a smile I've never seen before. Triumphant. Cruel. "Sorry, Lo. Guess you'll need to find a new maid of honor. And a new fiancé." The video ends. In the sudden silence, my reflection catches my eye again. I barely recognize myself. This shell-shocked woman in white lace, mascara starting to streak down her cheeks. Everything I thought I knew about love, friendship, trust. It's all unraveling like loose threads from my carefully constructed life. My phone buzzes again. A text from Lee. I can explain. A laugh bubbles up in my throat, high and slightly hysterical. 3 words. That's all he has to say? After 6 years together, after everything we built, after I gave him my whole heart, he thinks he can explain? "What do you want to do?" Marley asks softly, squeezing my shoulder. I meet my own eyes in the mirror again. Something shifts in my chest, the initial shock crystallizing into something harder, colder. They thought they could humiliate me like this? That I'd just cry and fall apart while they rode off into their happily ever after? I grab a tissue, carefully blot my tears, and reapply my lipstick with steady hands. "First, I want you to help me out of this dress." My voice sounds strange to my own ears, calm, almost detached. "Then I want you to tell me everything you know about them. Every detail, every suspicion you might have had but didn't want to tell me." And then, I smile at my reflection, but it's not the joyful smile of a bride anymore. It's something sharper, dangerous. Then we're going to make them wish they'd never met me. The diamond on my finger catches the light as I reach for my phone. 300 guests are waiting downstairs, expecting a fairy tale wedding. Instead, they're about to witness the beginning of something very different. I start typing. I'm sorry to inform you that today's wedding has been canceled. The worst part isn't the pitying looks or the whispered conversations that stop when I enter a room. It's the endless stream of notifications, each one a fresh reminder of how spectacularly my life imploded. I've been staring at my phone for hours, watching the view count on Sloane's video climb higher and higher. You need to eat something, Marley says, sliding a plate of toast across my kitchen counter. I've been camping out at her place since yesterday, since the non-wedding. The thought of returning to the apartment Lee and I shared makes me physically ill. I need to understand why. My voice is hoarse from crying. 6 years, Marley. 6 years and he throws it away for her? She hesitates, stirring her coffee. There's something you should know. I didn't want to tell you when you were already so upset, but... My phone buzzes. Another text from Lee. Please let me explain. It's not what you think. Block him, Marley snaps. Block them both. Wait. Something in the video preview catches my eye. I scroll back through Sloane's feed, my hands shaking. Look at this. The timestamp on their first photo together, 6 months ago at that charity gala. The one you couldn't attend because of your mom's surgery? Exactly. I zoom in on the background. But look where they are. That's the Meridian Hotel's penthouse suite, the one that costs $5,000 a night. Marley frowns. How could Lee afford that on his salary? He couldn't. The pieces start clicking together. Unless I pull up the browser on my laptop, fingers flying across the keys. Lee's investment firm's website loads, showing his smiling face under Senior Portfolio Manager. I scan through client testimonials until I find what I'm looking for. Here. I turn the screen toward Marley. 3 months ago, the SEC launched an investigation into suspicious trading patterns. No charges filed, but several client accounts showed unusual activity. You think Lee was... I think he was stealing. The words taste bitter. And I think Sloane knew. She's been handling PR for his firm since last spring. My phone rings, an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answer. Ms. Harrison? A man's voice, professional but tense. This is Percy Johnston with the Financial Crimes Unit. We need to speak with you regarding Lee Mitchell's activities at Beacon Investment Partners. My stomach lurches. I don't know anything about... Several large transfers were made from joint accounts you shared with Mr. Mitchell. Given the timing and nature of these transactions, we need to establish your level of involvement. The room spins. Joint accounts? We only had one, for wedding expenses. Unless... I'll have to call you back. I manage, ending the call. Marley watches me pull up our online banking. My hands are trembling so badly I mistyped the password twice. When the accounts finally load, I feel like I'm going to be sick. He emptied everything. I whisper. The wedding fund, our savings, even my personal account. How did he get access to... The power of attorney, Marley says quietly. The one you signed last month for the house purchase. The house, our dream home, the one we'd spent weekends touring, planning where to put the nursery. All a lie, just like everything else. My phone buzzes again. A text from Summer, Sloane's former roommate. Check your email. There's something you need to see. The email loads slowly, revealing dozens of forwarded messages between Lee and Sloane. My eyes catch on phrases that make my blood run cold. Transfer the funds before anyone notices. Keep Lorelei distracted. Once we're in the Caymans. They were planning this, I say, my voice strange and flat. The wedding, the video, all of it. It was just a distraction while they cleaned out the accounts. Marley reaches for my hand. We need to call the police. No. Something shifts inside me, like a switch being flipped. Not yet. Lorelei. They thought they were so clever. I scroll through the emails, my mind racing. But they made one mistake. They assumed I was just the clueless fiancé, too love-struck to see what was happening. I open my laptop again, this time logging into my work email. As the firm's compliance officer, I have access to every transaction Lee ever made. every client he contacted, every document he thought he'd deleted. "What are you going to do?" Marley asks. I think about the look on Sloane's face in that video. So smug, so certain of her victory. About Lee's pathetic, let me explain texts while he drained our accounts. I'm going to show them exactly how clueless I'm not. I start copying files to a secure drive. And when I'm done, they're going to wish they'd never underestimated me. My phone buzzes one more time. Another text from Summer. There's more. Meet me tonight. Come alone. The coffee shop is nearly empty at this hour, just a few students hunched over laptops. I spot Summer in the back corner, her fingers drumming nervously on a manila envelope. She looks different from the last time I saw her. Thinner, shadows under her eyes that makeup can't quite hide. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she says as I slide into the booth. Almost didn't. I keep my voice neutral. "Considering the last time we talked, you were defending Sloane." She winces. "I was wrong. About a lot of things." She pushes the envelope across the table, including what really happened the night she moved out of our apartment. Inside are bank statements, text messages, photos, a paper trail of betrayal going back further than I'd imagined. My hands start shaking when I see the dates. A year? My voice cracks. They've been... Well, he was proposing to me? Lorelai, it's worse than that. Summer leans forward, lowering her voice. Sloane wasn't just sleeping with Lee. She was helping him move money through shell companies. I found records. The bell above the door chimes. Summer goes rigid, her face draining of color. I turn to see Marley walking in, her expression thunderous. "What is she doing here?" Summer hisses. "I told you to come alone." I followed her. Marley says, sliding into the booth next to me. "Because the last person who asked to meet Lorelai alone turned out to be working with Lee." My heart stops. "What?" "Tell her," Marley demands, glaring at Summer. "Tell her about the text you sent Lee yesterday." Summer's face crumples. "I had to. They have things on me, dirt from when I worked at the firm. If I didn't warn them you were gathering evidence..." I feel like I'm drowning. "So this meeting, these documents, it's all a setup?" "Not exactly." Summer pulls out her phone, hands trembling. "Yes, they asked me to distract you, but they don't know about these." She pulls up a video, security footage from what looks like an office hallway. I kept copies of everything, including the night Lee and Sloane first discussed how to frame you for the missing client funds. My breath catches. On the screen, Lee paces while Sloane perches on a desk, both illuminated by late-night fluorescence. "It's perfect," Sloane says in the video. "The power of attorney gives us access to everything. Once the SEC starts investigating, all signs will point to Lorelai making the transfers." "And the wedding?" Lee asks. "The ultimate alibi. Who would suspect a man of stealing from his own bride?" Sloane's laugh makes my skin crawl. "By the time anyone figures it out, we'll be gone and she'll be facing federal charges." The video ends. I feel Marley's hand gripping mine under the table. "Why are you showing me this?" I ask Summer. "Why switch sides now?" "Because I found out what they did to my sister." Summer's voice hardens. 3 years ago, she invested her entire inheritance with Lee. When she started asking questions about missing funds, Sloane orchestrated a smear campaign that destroyed her career. She lost everything. My mind races. "The documents you brought, they prove this?" She nods. "Bank records, emails, everything. But we have to move fast. They're planning to leave the country tomorrow night." "How do you know that?" "Because they asked me to book their flights." Summer's smile is bitter. "First class to Grand Cayman, departing at 11 p.m. They think I'm still their loyal puppet." Marley leans forward. "We should take this to the police." "No." The word comes out sharp, surprising even me. "Not yet. They want to frame me? Fine, let them think it's working." "Lorelai, I need your help," I tell Summer. "Both of you. But first, I need to know I can trust you." I meet Summer's eyes. "Really trust you." She pulls out another phone. An old flip model. Burner phone. I've been recording every conversation with them for weeks, including one where they discussed which evidence to plant in your home office. My home office, where I keep all my compliance files, where Lee has a key. They're probably there right now, I say, standing abruptly. We need to go, but first, I take out my own phone, pulling up the SEC's tip line. A little insurance policy. I type quickly, potential fraud at Beacon Investments, evidence of embezzlement and client theft, whistleblower willing to cooperate. What are you doing? Marley asks, making sure they can't bury this even if they destroy the evidence. I hit send, then look at Summer. You said they're planning to frame me? Let's see how their plan holds up when I'm the one who reported them first. My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. Smart move, Lorelei. But you're not the only one who can play this game. Check your email. X. The email loads while we're in Marley's car, racing toward my apartment. My hands go numb as I read it. You don't know the whole story. The message begins. Lee and Sloan aren't working alone. Meet me at the Riverside Park gazebo in 30 minutes if you want to know who's really pulling the strings. Xander. It's a trap, Marley says, taking a sharp turn. Has to be. Wait. I grab her arm. Xander, he was Lee's old partner at Beacon before he quit last year. Lee said he had a breakdown, but what if he didn't? Summer leans forward from the back seat. What if he discovered something? I check the time. 25 minutes until the meeting. 10 minutes to my apartment. The choice tears at me. Check the office or meet Xander. Split up, I decide. Marley, take Summer to my place. Check the office, but don't touch anything. Just document whatever they've planted. I'll meet Xander. Alone? After what happened with Summer? He's taking a huge risk contacting me. I pull up his resignation letter on my phone. Look at the date. He quit right after the first suspicious transfer started. He must know something. Marley pulls over, her face tight with worry. Fine. But you text me every 5 minutes, and at the first sign of trouble, I run. I squeeze her hand. I promise. The park is deserted when I arrive, streetlights casting long shadows across wet grass. The gazebo looks ghostly in the darkness, and for a moment I think I've been stood up. Then a figure emerges from the shadows. Careful, Xander says softly. We're being watched. He looks nothing like the polished executive I remember. His clothes are rumpled, his eyes haunted. But there's something else. A fierce intensity that makes me believe him. Who's watching? Percy Johnston, SEC investigator. Xander's laugh is bitter. At least that's what he claims to be. My stomach drops. What do you mean? The real Percy Johnston died 6 months ago. Whoever called you is working with them. He hands me a file. These are the real SEC reports. Notice anything missing? I scan the documents, my heart pounding. There's no official investigation. The whole thing is fake, just like the evidence they're planting in your office right now. He checks his phone. Which is why we need to move fast. Why are you helping me? His expression darkens. Because they destroyed my life too. When I found out what they were doing with client funds, Lee and Sloan didn't just force me out. They manufactured a mental health crisis, had me committed. By the time I got out, my reputation was ruined. But you kept proof. Better. He pulls out a USB drive. I kept their playbook. Every scam, every frame job, every shell company, including the one they're using to set you up. My phone buzzes. Marley. Office clear, but weird. Everything's too normal. Like someone went through and cleaned. They're covering their tracks, Xander says, reading over my shoulder. Next they'll... A twig snaps behind us. We both freeze. Ms. Harrison? A familiar voice calls out. This is Percy Johnston. We need to talk. Xander grabs my arm. Back door. Now. We slip out the gazebo's rear entrance as footsteps approach. My heart pounds as we crouch behind a hedge. Think carefully about who you trust. The fake Percy calls out. Your friend Xander isn't telling you everything. I turn to Xander, who's typing frantically on his phone. What's he talking about? No time? He sends the message, then hands me the USB drive. Everything you need is here, but don't use it yet. Wait for my signal. What signal? Xander. Tomorrow night, when they try to leave. He grips my shoulders. Promise me you won't move before then. No matter what you hear, what evidence shows up, it has to be tomorrow night. Flashlight beams sweep the garden. Xander pushes me toward the park exit. Go, I'll distract them. I run, his words echoing in my head. My phone buzzes again. Summer this time. Found something in your office trash. Shredded documents, some pieces mention offshore accounts in your name. Another text follows immediately. Lorelei, what do you know about Cayman First Securities? My blood runs cold. That's the company name on the USB drive Xander just gave me. I stare at the drive in my shaking hand, doubt creeping in. Who's really playing who? And what happens tomorrow night that's so important? A final text comes through. This one from an unknown number. Tick-tock, Lorelei. Better decide who you trust before time runs out. For all of us. I spend the night piecing together shredded documents on Marley's living room floor, my fingers stained with ink and my mind racing. The fragments tell a story I'm not sure I want to understand. This can't be right. I mutter, arranging another strip of paper. These transfers, they're from 3 years ago. Marley looks up from her laptop. Before you even met Lee? Before he joined Beacon Investments. I hold up 2 matching pieces, but the account number matches the one Xander showed me. Summer paces behind us, phone pressed to her ear. Still no answer from Xander. His phone's going straight to voicemail. My hands shake as I line up another fragment. The letterhead slowly comes into focus. Cayman First Securities. Client name, Lorelei Harrison. Someone opened accounts in my name. My voice sounds distant, strange. Years before Lee and I met, like they chose me. That's impossible. Marley starts, but her phone interrupts with a text. Her face goes pale. Lorelei, you need to see this. It's a video message from Sloan. She's sitting in what looks like a hotel room, wearing the same smug smile from the wedding day video. But there's something different in her eyes now. Fear? By now you've probably figured out some of it, she says. But you're asking the wrong questions. Don't ask who opened those accounts. Ask who told Lee to pursue you in the first place. Ask who suggested hiring you as compliance officer. Ask yourself why. The video cuts off abruptly. Seconds later, my phone rings, an unknown number. Don't answer it, Summer warns. But I'm already hitting accept. Hello? Ms. Harrison. The fake Percy's voice is smooth, professional. I believe it's time we met in person. Bring the USB drive Xander gave you. The real question, he continues, is whether you want to be a victim or an accomplice. Your choice, but choose quickly. The line goes dead. My phone immediately pings with an address. It's a setup, Marley insists. You can't go. Look at this. Summer holds up another reconstructed document. These signature cards. Lorelei, this is your handwriting. Perfect matches from 3 years ago. That's not possible. But even as I say it, memories surface. Job interviews I don't quite remember clearly. Chance meetings that seem scripted in retrospect. Unless, my phone buzzes again. A photo from Lee. Me, 3 years ago at a coffee shop. In the background, barely visible, is Xander. The caption reads, "Still trust him?" I need to know. I stand up, grabbing my coat. All of it, even if what? Marley blocks my path. Even if it gets you killed? They're not just thieves, Lorelei. These people are dangerous. They made me fall in love with a lie. My voice breaks. They stole years of my life. I need to know why. Then we go together, Summer says. I'll drive. The address leads us to an abandoned office building. As we pull up, my phone lights up with a call from Xander. "Don't go in," he says without preamble. "It's not what you think. The whole thing, Lee, Sloan, the accounts, it's bigger than—" A gunshot cracks through the phone line. Then silence. "Xander?" My hands are shaking so badly I nearly drop the phone. "Xander?" A new voice comes on the line. Sloan's. "Time's up, Lo. Front door's open. Come alone or Xander won't be the only casualty." I'm out of the car before Marley can grab me. "Call the real police," I tell them. "The actual SEC. Anyone, just give me 15 minutes. Lorelai, wait." But I'm already running toward the building, the USB drive heavy in my pocket. The front door creaks open at my touch. Emergency lights cast a sickly glow through empty halls. "Hello?" My voice echoes. "I'm here. I brought what you wanted." "Third floor." Sloane's voice floats down the stairwell. "Better hurry." I take the stairs 2 at a time, adrenaline drowning out fear. At the 3rd floor landing, I pause. Light spills from under an office door. My phone buzzes one last time. A text from Lee. "I'm sorry, I never meant for it to go this far. Whatever happens next, remember I did love you. In my way." The office door swings open before I can respond. Sloane stands in the doorway, but she's not alone. Behind her, a familiar figure steps into the light. "Hello, Lorelai," says the real Percy Johnston. "We've been waiting a very long time for this moment." And suddenly I understand. This was never about the money. It was about something much, much worse. The real Percy Johnston looks exactly like his ID photo, the one Xander showed me of the supposedly dead investigator. My mind spins, trying to make sense of it all. Confused? Sloane's smirk doesn't quite hide her nervousness. "You should see your face right now." "The USB drive," Percy says, holding out his hand. "Please." I clutch it tighter. "Where's Xander?" "Safe, for now." He steps closer, though that could change depending on your cooperation. The office is bare except for a laptop on a desk. On its screen, security camera feeds show the building's entrance. I spot Marley and Summer in their car, phones to their ears. "Your friends won't reach anyone," Percy says. "All calls from this area are being redirected." "Why me?" The question bursts out. "All this elaborate setup, years of planning, why?" "Because you were perfect." Sloane's voice turns bitter. "The ideal mark. Smart enough to get the compliance position, naive enough to trust Lee, and just ambitious enough to ignore red flags." "We needed someone above suspicion," Percy adds. "Someone whose signature on those accounts would withstand scrutiny. The perfect scapegoat when the investigation finally launched." My throat tightens. Investigation into what? "Oh, honey." Sloane laughs. "You really think this was about stealing from investment accounts? Look at the USB drive you're holding. Really look at it." I pull it out. In the harsh fluorescent light, I notice something I missed before. Tiny letters etched on the side. Project Oracle. Percy's expression hardens. "That drive contains evidence of a money laundering operation spanning 5 continents. Billions in criminal funds, cleaned through seemingly legitimate investment firms. Your signature is on every key document." "I never signed." "Yes, you did. Every time you approved a compliance report. Every time you signed off on a transfer. All carefully designed to implicate you while keeping the real operation hidden." My hands shake. "And Lee? Played his part perfectly." Sloane's smile falters slightly. "Though he did make one mistake." "He fell in love with you," Percy says. "Started having doubts. That's why we needed to accelerate the timeline." The wedding, the video, the public humiliation, all orchestrated to discredit me before I could discover the truth. A noise from the hallway makes us all turn. Footsteps. "Right on time," Percy says. The door opens. Lee walks in, looking haunted. When he sees me, his face crumples. "I'm sorry," he whispers. "They have my sister." "Enough talking." Percy pulls out a gun. The drive, Lorelei. Now. Time seems to slow. I look at Lee, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not the man I loved, but a trapped animal willing to sacrifice anyone to save himself. At Sloane, whose fear now outweighs her arrogance. At Percy, whose professional mask can't quite hide his desperation. They're all terrified. But of what? My phone vibrates in my pocket. A pattern I recognize. Marley's signal. You know what I don't understand? I say, stepping toward the laptop. If you're so smart, how did you miss the obvious? Percy's gun follows me. Don't move. You chose me because I was naive, trusting, easy to manipulate. Another step. But you forgot something crucial. Last warning, Percy growls. I smile, feeling strangely calm. You forgot to check who my best friend works for. The window explodes inward as a SWAT team rappels into the room. Percy spins, but it's too late. The gun flies from his hand as officers tackle him. FBI, everyone down! Sloane screams. Lee drops to his knees. And through the chaos, Marley walks in, holding up her badge. Federal agent, she says. 5 years undercover tracking Project Oracle. Thanks for finally leading us to the top. My legs give out. Marley catches me before I hit the floor. The whole time? I whisper. You knew? Not everything. She squeezes my hand. But enough to know you needed protection. Why do you think I pushed so hard to be your maid of honor instead of Sloane? As handcuffs click around Percy's wrists, my phone buzzes one final time. A message from Xander. Safe. Signal received. Check the hidden partition on the drive. You're not going to believe what else they were hiding. I look at the USB drive still clutched in my hand, then at Lee being led away in cuffs. At Sloane's mascara-streaked face as she's read her rights. At Percy, whose mask has finally cracked to reveal pure fury. Ready to end this? Marley asks. I think of all the lies, all the manipulation, all the carefully orchestrated betrayals. Of the life I thought I was building, now revealed as an elaborate trap. No, I say, gripping the drive tighter. First, I want to know exactly what's on this thing. Then we end it, on my terms. The hidden partition on the drive contains thousands of files, but one folder catches my eye immediately. Contingency. Inside is a video file dated tomorrow, the day Lee and Sloane plan to flee. Play it, Marley says. We're in a secure FBI office, surrounded by evidence boards and coffee cups. Dawn light filters through bulletproof windows. The video starts. It's Percy, sitting at a desk much like this one. If you're watching this, he says, something's gone wrong. But don't think you've won. Project Oracle isn't just about money laundering. The real operation begins at midnight tonight, with or without us. My hands clench. What operation? More files reveal the truth. Project Oracle isn't just cleaning criminal money. It's using that money to buy judges, politicians, regulators, creating an invisible network of corruption. The transfers are scheduled to start automatically. Xander says, pointing to a timeline. He joined us an hour ago, sporting a bandaged arm and fierce determination. Once they do, the whole system becomes self-sustaining. Untouchable. Unless we stop it. Marley pulls up bank records. But we need authentication from someone with executive access. Lee, I whisper. He's not talking. Marley looks grim. None of them are. They're more scared of their bosses than prison. I stare at Lee's booking photo on the evidence board. The man I thought I knew. The life I thought we'd have. Let me talk to him. Lorelei, I know him. My voice stays steady. I know his tells, his weaknesses, and he knows what I'm capable of now. 20 minutes later, I'm sitting across from Lee in an interview room. He looks smaller somehow, defeated. They'll kill my sister, he says before I can speak. No, they won't. I slide over my phone, showing him a photo. Because she's already safe. FBI extracted her an hour ago. His face crumples. How did you... Because unlike you, I actually care about protecting the people I love. The words taste like ashes. Now tell me how to stop the transfers. You don't understand what they'll do. I understand exactly what they'll do. I lean forward. Because I found the other contingency files, Lee. The ones showing what happens to loose ends when operations like this go wrong. He flinches. Help us, I say softly. Or watch everything burn. Your choice. His hands shake as he reaches for a pen. The next hours blur into a frenzy of activity. Codes entered, accounts frozen, dominoes carefully arranged. By nightfall, we're gathered in a command center, watching screens full of transaction data. 1 minute to midnight, Marley announces. I think of Percy's smug face, of Sloane's cruel smile, of all the careful lies designed to break me. But mostly I think of that morning in the bridal suite, watching my world shatter on a phone screen. 30 seconds. Xander grips my shoulder. Summer holds my hand. Marley counts down. Now. I press enter. For a moment, nothing happens. Then accounts start freezing, one after another. Transactions fail. Safety protocols trigger. The invisible empire begins to crumble. It's working. Xander breathes. My phone buzzes. A message from an unknown number. You have no idea what you've done. Another follows. This isn't over. Actually, I type back. It is. I think of all the moments that led here. The proposal I once thought was perfect. The friendship I believed was unshakable. The future I planned so carefully. Multiple arrests in progress. Someone calls out. London, Singapore, Dubai. Lorelei. Marley's voice is gentle. We got them. The screens fill with confirmation after confirmation. Project Oracle, the scheme that stole years of my life, dissolves into frozen accounts and arrest warrants. My phone buzzes one last time. A video call from Sloane. I answer. She's in her cell, all pretense gone. How does it feel? She asks. Destroying everything we built? You didn't build anything. My voice is calm, certain. You just stole and lied and hurt people, and now everyone knows exactly who you are. We're not so different, she tries. You could have... I end the call. Around me, agents celebrate as reports flood in. Summer hugs me, crying. Xander starts explaining the scope of what we've uncovered. Marley squeezes my hand. But I'm looking at my reflection in the darkened window. At the woman who emerged from the ashes of that wedding day. The one who turned betrayal into justice, heartbreak into strength. You okay? Marley asks softly. I smile. Not the broken smile from the bridal suite, but something fiercer, more real. I am now. The morning sun streams through my office window as I pack the last of my personal items. Not running away this time, moving forward. The cardboard box holds carefully chosen pieces of my past. Photos of real friendships, mementos of genuine victories. My phone buzzes. A news alert. Project Oracle mastermind found dead in prison cell. Percy's face stares up from the screen. Suicide, they're saying. But the message that follows suggests otherwise. Still think it's over? The unknown number again. I don't respond. Instead, I open my laptop and type in the encryption key Xander helped me create. One last piece of insurance. Everything I discovered about Project Oracle's true reach, set to automatically release if anything happens to me. A knock at my door. Ready? Marley asks. Almost. I glance at my now empty compliance officer desk. Hard to believe this was all a setup from the beginning. Not everything. She perches on the edge of my desk. They chose you because you were good at your job. Too good, as it turned out. I pick up a framed photo. Me and Sloane at her birthday last year. The glass is cracked, but I keep it as a reminder. You know what's strange? I actually feel sorry for her. Why? Because she'll never know what real friendship feels like. I drop the photo in the trash. Or real love. Everything's just transactions to her. My phone buzzes again. Summer. You need to see this. She's forwarded an email chain, messages between Lee and Sloan from the day before our wedding. My hands shake as I read. I can't go through with it, Lee wrote. We need to tell her the truth. Sloan's response. You know what happens if you back out? To both of you. They threatened you too, I realize. That's why you looked so scared in the video. The last email is from Lee to Percy. I'm done. After tomorrow's ceremony, I'm telling Lorelai everything. Whatever happens, happens. He was going to confess, Marley says softly. That's why they had to move up the timeline. A bitter laugh escapes me. Is that supposed to make it better? No, but maybe it helps explain why he cooperated so quickly in the end. I think about Lee in that interview room, giving up everything to save his sister. About Sloane's mask finally cracking. About Percy's desperate final gambit. They were all trapped in their own lies, I say, just like I was. Another knock. Xander enters, looking more like his old self in a crisp suit. Security footage from Percy's cell just leaked. It wasn't suicide. I know. I show him the threatening text. They're trying to scare us into silence. Are you scared? Marley asks. I consider the question, remembering that moment in the bridal suite when my world first cracked open. The devastation, the betrayal, the helplessness. No, I realize. Not anymore. My phone rings, an unknown number, but this time I know exactly who it is. Hello, Marcus, I say, naming the one person who never appeared in any document, any video, any trail. Project Oracle's true architect. Silence then. Impressive. How did you know? Because Percy's dead, Sloane's in custody, and Lee's cooperating. But someone's still pulling strings. Someone who's been watching me since before I even met Lee. Clever girl. His voice is smooth, amused. We could use someone like you. That's your pitch? After everything? Consider it a promotion. Your skills, my resources. Here's my counteroffer. I hit send on my laptop. Check your inbox. A pause. Then, what did you do? Released everything. Every account, every connection, every secret player. It's all public now. My voice stays steady. You can't threaten what's already exposed. The line goes dead. Marley's phone immediately lights up with alerts. Xander grabs his laptop, watching the information cascade across social media, news sites, federal channels. It's really over, Summer whispers from the doorway. I pick up my box of carefully chosen memories, looking around the office one last time. Not at what was taken from me, but at what I've reclaimed. No, I say, thinking of all the people like me out there, trapped in beautiful lies. It's just beginning. I walk out into the sunlight, leaving the broken pieces of my old life behind. Ahead lies something better than revenge, better than justice, the truth. And this time, it's mine to tell.
I recently discovered that my stepmother and stepsister were scheming to exclude me from my father's will. This revelation led me to leave home and face life's challenges on my own for the past year. Now, my father is aware of the reasons behind my departure, and this has transformed our relationship. I'm a 21-year-old man, and I've been living with my dad, stepmom, and stepsister for about 5 years. My mother passed away when I was 15, and my dad remarried a year later. It was a whirlwind romance, and soon I had a new stepmom named Violet and a stepsister called Ellie, who is 4 years my junior. Initially, our home life was manageable, never perfect, but tolerable. Violet attempted to be the caring mother figure, but her efforts felt contrived and hollow. Ellie was always polite yet somewhat aloof. I attributed this to the natural awkwardness arising from our newly formed family dynamic, hoping things would get better with time. After my mom's death, my dad immersed himself in his business, a habit that persisted even after his remarriage. He's a busy CEO of Tesla, often absent due to work commitments, which meant I spent considerable time with Violet and Ellie. For a while, things seemed normal, especially during family meals when my dad was around. I went to college locally, returning home on weekends and holidays. After graduating, I moved back home while job hunting in my field. That's when the atmosphere began to shift. Violet's demeanor cooled significantly, and she started hinting that I should be living independently. Ellie, fresh from university herself, moved back in, making our house feel suddenly overcrowded and filled with silent tensions. While job searching in a tough economy, I sensed an unspoken strain but couldn't pinpoint its source. My dad encouraged me patiently, advising me to find the right job without rushing, while Violet openly expressed that I should leave home. The turning point came unexpectedly. Last week, while I was in my room, I overheard a disturbing conversation between Violet and Ellie in the hallway. Thinking I was out, they spoke openly about removing me from the equation before my dad's will was settled. The cold calculation in their voices as they discussed strategies to undermine me, like restricting my access to our family car and sabotaging my laptop to hinder my job applications, was chilling. They plotted not just to disinherit me, but also talked eagerly about the financial gains and lavish expenditures at my expense. After overhearing their callous plans, I was devastated. These were individuals I had lived with for years, considered my family, yet here they were, conspiring against me as if I were merely an obstacle to their desires. The days that followed were incredibly tough. I struggled to maintain a semblance of normalcy around Violet and Ellie, whose every glance now seemed laden with secretive, scheming intent. The experience has profoundly shaken my trust and altered my view of what I once thought of as my family. After discovering my stepmother Violet and stepsister Ellie plotting to exclude me from my dad's will, I grappled with whether to tell him. He seemed genuinely content with Violet, and I didn't want to disrupt his happiness with what might seem like baseless accusations. It would be their word against mine, and I wasn't certain he would believe me over them. Instead of confronting the situation directly, I chose to subtly plan my exit. I reached out to friends to see if anyone needed a roommate and intensified my job search, even applying for roles I had previously dismissed as unsuitable. Anything to get out of the house. About a week later, I got a break. A friend of a friend was looking for someone to sublet their apartment while they studied abroad. The rent was a bit high, but it was manageable if I dipped into my savings. I seized the opportunity. When I informed my dad of my decision to move out, his reaction was one of surprise but supportive. Violet and Ellie, however, barely concealed their delight. They made a show of helping me pack, exchanging sly glances when they thought I wasn't looking. On the day I moved, I accidentally overheard them again. This time, they were discussing how to ensure my dad didn't change his will now that I was out of the picture. It became clear that their plans were not just about driving me out. They intended to disinherit me entirely. In my new, modest apartment in a less-than-ideal neighborhood, I've been piecing together a living with graphic designer and continued job hunting. It's not perfect, but it's far better than living in a toxic environment. My dad checks in every few days, and I can sense his concern over my reduced visits. I've kept busy with excuses about job hunting and settling into my new place, not yet ready to reveal the real reasons for my departure. I've considered legal action to protect my inheritance, but the financial aspect hurts less than the betrayal. At night, I sometimes question if my mother would be disappointed in me for not standing up more firmly. But she always taught me that family is defined by love, not blood or legal ties by that standard. Violet and V were never truly family. Lately, I've been reconnecting with my mother's relatives, seeking the familial warmth I've missed. As for Violet and Ellie, part of me wants to confront them, but another part prefers to simply move forward and rebuild my life independently of them. I've landed in computer technician, which isn't glamorous, but is a step towards self-sufficiency. I've also started therapy on a budget, working through the feelings of anger and betrayal. Through therapy, I've been writing letters to Violet and Ellie, not to send, but to express everything I wish I could tell them. These writings help me cope with my emotions. And in my dreams, I see my mom smiling, telling me she's proud. These moments bring both comfort and a profound sense of loss. As I navigate this challenging chapter, I find solace in establishing a stable routine, focused on building a future that relies solely on my own resilience and strength, nothing more than a hurdle in their path to wealth. I'm building a life for myself now, one that isn't tethered to Violet, Ellie, or any inheritance drama. My dad's birthday is next month, and I'm torn about attending the family dinner. Part of me wants to be there for him, to celebrate together. But the thought of facing Violet and Ellie and acting like all is well makes me feel sick. I found solace in volunteering at a local youth center on weekends. The kids there, many from broken homes or dealing with the loss of parents, resonate with me in a way I couldn't have understood before. This work has been healing, helping me process my own grief and anger. I often wonder how Violet and Ellie explain my sudden departure. Do they portray me as the ungrateful stepson who abandoned his family? Or do they act as if I never existed at all? These thoughts occasionally haunt me, but I try not to dwell on them. I've made new friends through my job and volunteering connections based on who I am rather than any potential inheritance. These relationships feel more genuine than anything I had with Violet or Ellie. Recently, I bumped into Ellie at the grocery store. She was overly friendly, inquiring about my job and my new apartment. I kept my responses vague and left quickly, shaken by the encounter. Lately, I've been contemplating my long-term future. Do I stay in this city, risking awkward run-ins with Violet or Ellie? Or do I start fresh somewhere else? The idea of moving is appealing yet daunting. I'm not ready to leave my dad behind. As my apartment lease nears its end, I'm weighing whether to renew it or find a better place. The idea of moving again is exhausting, but so is the thought of staying put indefinitely. I've also started dating, though nothing serious. It's nice, but it's hard to open up and trust someone new. My therapist says it's normal to feel this way and that rebuilding trust will take time. Work has been a positive distraction. I recently received a small promotion, which has eased some financial pressures. I no longer need to dip into my savings just to make rent, a small but significant victory. I still haven't told my dad about overhearing Violet and Ellie. Every time I consider it, I talk myself out of it, fearing he might not believe me or that it could drive a wedge between us. Sometimes I feel irrational anger towards my mom for leaving me in this situation. If she were still here, none of this would be happening. I'd still have a home, a family, a sense of belonging. I push these thoughts away, but they linger. Cooking has become a new hobby for me. It was never a necessity at home, but now it's essential. I'm not great at it yet, but I'm improving. There's something deeply satisfying about creating meals from scratch, about nourishing myself in this very tangible way. With the holidays approaching, I face new challenges. The thought of enduring fake smiles and forced cheer at the family dinner is daunting, yet spending the holidays alone is hardly appealing. My sleep has been fitful, disturbed by memories of that overheard conversation. I analyze every past interaction with Violet and Ellie, searching for missed signs. It's exhausting, yet I can't seem to stop. I've considered confronting Violet and Ellie, letting them know I heard everything. But what would that achieve? They'd likely deny everything or twist the narrative, potentially complicating things with my dad even further. Some days I manage just fine. I go to work, come home, and carry on with life. Other days, the weight of everything that's happened is overwhelming, making it difficult to even get out of bed. Despite these challenges, I'm committed to forging a path forward, one step at a time, building a life that's defined by my choices, not by the shadows of a family that never really was. I was never the target of her and her mother's scheming. I've started to keep a journal, documenting my thoughts and feelings every day. It's therapeutic to pour everything onto the page. Perhaps one day, these entries will serve as a testament to my journey and how much I've overcome. As I hit the 3-month milestone of living independently, I find myself reflecting on the immense changes in my life. The person who overheard that fateful conversation seems like a stranger now. I've grown stronger, yet in some ways I feel more vulnerable. I'm learning to stand on my own, to build a life that's shaped by my own efforts, not swayed by the whims or wealth of others. I'm unsure of what the future holds. Will I ever confront Violet and Ellie? Will I share the truth with my dad? Can I move past this betrayal and trust others again? These questions linger unanswered as I focus on building a life that's uniquely mine. It's challenging and far from the life I envisioned, but it's authentically mine, and perhaps that's enough. It's been a year since I moved out of my dad's house, spurred by overhearing the sinister plot concocted by my stepmother and stepsister. Much has changed, and not all for the better. I've been remiss in updating this post. Life has been overwhelmingly busy, between work, therapy, and simply trying to stay afloat, leaving little time for news. But I know many of you have been curious about the developments, and I appreciate the support and kindness you've shown, especially during those initial tough months. Your encouragement has been a beacon during this dark period. I'm still at the same job I landed after moving out. The work is fine, but the pay is barely sufficient to cover my expenses. I've been searching for something better, but the job market is unforgiving, and each rejection feels like a personal defeat. My relationship with my dad has become strained. I've avoided family gatherings and made excuses not to visit. He's called more often, sensing something is amiss. It pains me to deceive him, but I'm not ready to disclose the real reasons for my departure. I attended his birthday dinner a few months ago, and it was as uncomfortable as I anticipated. Violet and Ellie put on a show of concern and curiosity about my life, their eyes calculating, likely gauging whether I was struggling enough to relinquish any claim to the inheritance. I left early, using work as an excuse. The holidays were particularly hard. I told my dad I had to work during Christmas, but in reality, I spent the day alone in my apartment, eating a microwave turkey dinner and watching classic films. It was lonely and melancholic, but preferable to the facade of a happy family reunion with Violet and Ellie. Lately, I've been contemplating telling my dad the truth more seriously, but I always stopped short. What if he doesn't believe me? What if it drives a wedge between us, or worse, what if he believes me but chooses to stay with Violet regardless? I'm not sure I could endure that rejection. Therapy has been beneficial, though progress is slow. I'm still grappling with feelings of anger and betrayal. My therapist assures me that healing takes time, but some days it feels like I'll never fully recover. I've encountered Ellie a few times around town since. Each meeting, she acts as if nothing ever happened, as if we're just two acquaintances with a normal past. It's surreal and disconcerting. Each interaction is a reminder of the facade she and her mother maintain and the reality I live with. As I navigate through these daily challenges, I am learning to focus more on myself, crafting a life grounded in self-reliance and resilience, even if the road is long and fraught with obstacles. Part of a family again, one that genuinely cared about me, not tied to ulterior motives or financial gains. The trip was refreshing and somewhat of a lifeline, reminding me of who I am beyond all the turmoil. The volunteer work at the youth center continues to be a highlight in my life. I've bonded with a teenager named Alex who recently lost his mom. Guiding him through his grief has unexpectedly helped me with my own. It's a reminder that amidst life's chaos, there are still meaningful connections to be forged and good to be found in the world. Dating has been challenging. I've tried to put myself out there a few times over the past year, but it's been difficult to truly open up. My last date ended when she pointed out that I seemed to carry too much baggage. She was probably right. With my lease ending next month, I'm at a crossroads. The thought of moving is daunting, yet I'm growing increasingly weary of my small, noisy apartment. I've begun looking at other places, considering even a move to a neighboring city for a fresh start. Reconnecting with my mom's sister, Aunt Ella, after so long was initially awkward, but quickly felt right. We hadn't spoken since my mom's funeral, and rekindling that relationship felt like rediscovering a part of myself I had lost. She invited me to spend a weekend with her family, and despite the daunting prospect of explaining my current life situation, I'm seriously considering it. Work has been stressful with looming layoffs. As one of the newer employees, I'm anxious about being let go. The fear of losing my job is overwhelming, considering my dwindling savings. Nightmares about ending up homeless or being forced to return to my dad's house to face Violet and Ellie haunt me. I wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, and it takes hours to calm down enough to fall asleep again. My recent birthday was low-key. Dad called, and a few friends took me out for drinks, but it was hard not to reminisce about past celebrations when my mom was alive. The stark contrast made the day feel even more somber. I often find myself talking to my mom's photo and expressing my frustrations. It might seem childish, but it's a comforting ritual that helps me process my feelings. My resentment towards Violet and Ellie remains strong, occasionally consuming my thoughts with fantasies of confronting them and exposing their deceit in front of my dad. In these daydreams, they confess, and Dad sends them away. But I know these are just fantasies. I've consulted with a lawyer about my options regarding the inheritance, but without concrete evidence, my options are limited. He suggested discussing a trust with my dad, but I'm not ready to open up about everything yet. My health has suffered under the strain of ongoing stress. I've lost weight, and my doctor has noted elevated blood pressure. He's advised finding ways to relax, easier said than done. I've toyed with the idea of moving to a new city to start fresh, where I won't have to worry about running into Violet or Ellie. But the thought of leaving my dad and potentially never seeing him again is too painful to seriously consider. Yet, amidst the darkness, there have been moments of light. I've made some good friends at work and through volunteering, people who appreciate me for who I am, not for any potential inheritance. I've also picked up new hobbies like learning to play the guitar and running. While I'm not particularly skilled at the guitar yet, the process of learning has been immensely satisfying. Running has become more than just a physical activity, it's a mental release, a way to momentarily escape my troubles. As the 1-year mark of my move approaches, I find myself wrestling with anxiety over my perceived lack of progress. My therapist reminds me that healing isn't linear and encourages me to be kinder to myself. I'm working on embracing that mindset. Visiting Aunt Ella and her family turned out to be a profound experience. Being around people who knew and loved my mom, who shared stories I'd never heard, made me feel connected to her in a new way. For a weekend, I experienced the warmth and belonging of a real family, a stark contrast to the fraught dynamics I've endured. This connection has given me a glimpse of peace and a reminder that there is a place where I am valued and loved, just as I am. Feeling like I belonged somewhere again was truly rejuvenating, but returning to my empty apartment afterwards was more challenging than I anticipated. The visit with Aunt Ella brought up complex emotions. When she inquired about my dad and his new wife, I struggled to speak, the words caught in my throat. She noticed my discomfort and gently pressed for more details. I found myself opening up and telling her everything about overhearing Violet and Ellie, my fears regarding the inheritance, and why I had been distancing myself from family events. Aunt Ella was livid on my behalf. She was ready to confront Violet and Ellie right away and call my dad to expose everything. I had to calm her down and explain why I hadn't shared these details with him yet. Although she disagreed with my decision to keep silent, she respected it. Before I left, she made me promise to stay in contact and reach out if I needed anything. Knowing that someone from my mom's side of the family was supporting me provided immense comfort. Ella now calls regularly to check in on me and even offered her home as a refuge if my financial situation worsened. I haven't taken her up on that offer yet, but it's reassuring to know it's there. Things with my dad reached a tipping point last week when he showed up at my apartment unexpectedly. The worry on his face was evident. He said he couldn't bear the distance between us any longer and pressed me to open up. I tried to evade his questions at first, but he persisted, and eventually I told him everything. It was an emotional outpouring about the overheard conversation, my inheritance concerns, and my avoidance of family gatherings. Dad listened in silence, his expression growing increasingly grave. After I finished, he sat quietly for what felt like an eternity before apologizing. He admitted he had been oblivious to the dynamics at home, and although he didn't explicitly say he believed me, he didn't dismiss my concerns either. He promised to be more observant of Violet and Ellie's behavior, and to discuss safeguarding my inheritance with his lawyer, regardless of the status of his marriage. I felt a mix of relief and guilt after our conversation. Relief that I had shared my burden, but guilt for possibly upsetting his life and marriage. Dad reassured me that coming forward was the right thing to do, even though I could see the turmoil in his eyes. It's been a week since that conversation, and communication from Dad has been sparse. He's texted to say he's looking into everything and will good news me soon. The wait and the silence are tough. Violet called yesterday, her tone unnervingly sweet, inviting me to a family dinner. I declined, citing work commitments. I can't help but wonder if she knows about my talk with Dad and is attempting some form of damage control. The thought leaves a sour taste in my mouth. As I stand on the brink of my 2nd year of independence, I'm faced with a crossroads. Should I stay here, close to Dad, yet also near Violet and Ellie? Or should I accept Aunt Ella's offer and move closer to my mom's family? Perhaps I should strike out completely on my own, relocating to a new city for a fresh start. I haven't decided yet, but for the first time in a long while, I feel like I have options. The future is uncertain, but it doesn't seem as bleak as it did a year ago. I'm not fully okay, but I'm getting there, focusing day by day on my job, my volunteering, and my new hobbies. I'm determined to build a life that's wholly mine, independent of anyone else's goodwill or inheritance. It's challenging and not the life I envisioned, but it's mine, and that might just be enough. The conversation with Dad has revived many old feelings, and I find myself thinking about my mom more than ever. wondering if she would be proud of me or disappointed that I hadn't fought harder. The uncertainty gnaws at me. The waiting for Dad's life is excruciating, and I find myself jumping at every phone notification, anxious for any news. In quieter moments, the worries return, but I keep busy with work and hobbies to distract myself. Recently, Ellie tried to friend me on social media. I ignored the request, unsettled by her motives. Is she trying to keep tabs on me, or is it another ploy to maintain the illusion of a happy family? Either way, I want no part of it. As I ponder my future, I remain vigilant, cautious, and increasingly hopeful as I navigate this complex journey. Before, I had only vague ideas about possibly going to grad school or advancing in my career. Now, it feels like I'm stuck in survival mode, just trying to keep my head above water. I wonder if there will ever come a time when I can think about the future without being clouded by anxiety. The lease on my apartment is up next week, and after a lot of contemplation, I've decided to move to a slightly better place in a different part of town. It's not a big change, but it feels significant a step toward moving forward rather than remaining stagnant. I had dinner last night with Alex, a young man from the youth center where I volunteer. He's off to college soon and wanted to express his gratitude for the support I've provided over the past year. Seeing his progress in overcoming grief and moving forward has sparked a bit of hope in me. Perhaps I can find a similar path forward. As I pack up my apartment, I reflect on where I was a year ago, leaving my family home with just a suitcase and a broken heart. Now I have a job, an apartment, and friends. It's not a lot, but it's something I built on my own. There's a sense of pride in that, despite the lingering pain and uncertainty. I'm still waiting to hear back from my dad about the investigation. The silence is tough to bear, but I'm trying to stay patient. No matter what happens, I know I can handle it. I've already survived betrayal, loneliness, and uncertainty. Whatever comes next, I'm ready. For now, I'm focusing on my move, setting up my new apartment, and making it feel like home. I'm continuing to build a life that's entirely my own, independent of the drama with Dad, Violet, and Ellie. It's not the life I envisioned, but it's the one I'm living. And for today, that's enough. About 3 months, and quite a bit has happened. After our conversation where I told him everything, Dad spent weeks gathering evidence. He hired a private investigator, checked financial records, and even orchestrated a sting operation. He discovered enough evidence to confirm everything I'd told him and more. It turns out Violet and Ellie had been siphoning money from his accounts for years. They made small withdrawals here and there, which went unnoticed but eventually added up to a significant amount. They had also been trying to manipulate him into changing his will. When Dad confronted them with the evidence, chaos ensued. Violet initially denied everything but then tried to shift the blame onto Ellie. Ellie, overwhelmed with guilt, confessed to everything and implicated Violet. Ultimately, Dad filed for divorce and is pressing charges against them for financial fraud. Violet and Ellie have since moved out and are staying with Violet's sister in another state. I have mixed feelings about all of this. On one hand, I feel vindicated everything I feared and overheard was true. On the other hand, it's painful to see Dad go through this turmoil. He thought he loved Violet, and realizing it was all a lie has been devastating for him. We've been talking more, and he has apologized repeatedly for not noticing the signs earlier. I've forgiven him, but our relationship is still a bit strained. We're working on it though, starting with weekly dinners together. It's awkward sometimes, but it's a start. I'm settling into my new apartment, which feels like a fresh beginning, truly mine, with no ties to Violet or Ellie. I've been furnishing it slowly, turning it into a comfortable home. Work has been going better as well. The layoffs I feared didn't happen, and I even received a small raise. It's not a lot, but it's enough that I'm no longer living paycheck to paycheck. I've started saving a bit each month, which feels like a small victory. Therapy continues, and my therapist notes that I'm making progress, even if it doesn't always feel that way. The feelings of anger and betrayal are still there, but they no longer consume my every thought. I'm learning to live with what happened, not letting it define me, and focusing on the positives in my life. Each day, I take another step forward, building a life that's authentically mine. Lately, I've been reconnecting with my mother's side of the family, and it's been a blessing to have Ella by my side. She's like a second mother to me, always ready to offer advice or just listen when I need it. I've also been spending more time with her family. getting to know my cousins again. It's comforting to feel part of a family, even though it's different from the one I grew up with. Dating has been a bit of a mixed bag. I've been out on a few dates, but haven't found anything serious yet. Trusting new people is still a challenge, something my therapist says is perfectly normal and will take time to overcome. I'm learning to be patient with myself. My dad and I recently discussed his decision to set up a trust fund for me, separate from his personal assets. He wants to ensure I'm taken care of, regardless of what the future holds. While I insisted it wasn't necessary, he was adamant it's his way of making amends. Dad also mentioned selling our family home due to the many painful memories associated with it. While part of me is sad to see it go, it is my childhood home. After all, I understand his need for a fresh start. Recently, I had an awkward encounter with one of Ellie's friends who blamed me for some past troubles. I chose to walk away rather than engage, realizing that their opinions no longer matter to me. I know the truth, and that's enough. Work has been a great distraction. I've been dedicating myself to my job, taking on extra projects. My efforts haven't gone unnoticed. My boss has even hinted at a potential promotion. It's rewarding to feel appreciated and to see my hard work paying off. Dad and I are planning a simple trip together, just a weekend at a nearby lake where we used to camp when I was a child. It feels like a positive step towards mending our relationship and creating new, happier memories. Aunt Ella recently gave me a box of my mom's old belongings, photos, letters, and some of her jewelry. Going through these items was emotional but also healing. It's a tangible connection to her, which I treasure. I've also been reaching out to old friends, reconnecting with those who were there before things went south with Violet and Ellie. While not everyone has been receptive, it's been fulfilling to rebuild my support network. The legal issues with Violet and Ellie are still ongoing, but I try not to let them dominate my thoughts. They will face the consequences of their actions, but I'm focused on moving forward, not letting their fate control my life. Looking ahead, I'm even considering going back to school for a master's degree. For the first time in a long while, I feel capable and ready to take on such a commitment. There are still tough days, but the good ones are becoming more frequent. I'm not fully okay yet, but I'm on my way. I'm building a new life, one that isn't defined by past hardships. It's not the life I envision, but it's uniquely mine, and I'm eager to see what the future holds.
For my 18th birthday, my grandparents surprised me with an amazing gift, a trip to New Zealand, complete with a flight ticket and a check for expenses. It was an incredible opportunity, especially since I'm planning to major in literature, and New Zealand's rich history would be perfect for my studies. However, the joy was short-lived. My parents began insisting I hand over the trip to my older sister, Ellie, who's 20 and the family's golden child. They argued that as a project architect, Ellie would benefit more from the architectural wonders of New Zealand during her vacation. It's important to note that when Ellie turned 18, she had the chance for a similar trip but opted for the money instead. Despite my protests and the fact that airline policies generally don't allow ticket transfers except in emergencies, my parents were relentless. After days of emotional pressure and arguments that dredged up all they had done for me, I caved. They claimed they wanted to avoid wasting the trip, a statement that stung deeply, as it implied my going would be a waste. Feeling hurt and weary of the constant conflict, I decided to let them have their way, at least to keep the peace, and because I thought ticket transfers weren't possible. Yet, in a twist of fate, on the day of the flight, Ellie had an accident on her way to the airport. Seeing an unexpected chance to reclaim what was originally mine, I took back the ticket and headed to New Zealand, eager to embrace the adventure that awaited. According to the airline's guidelines, which I had thoroughly reviewed, I didn't think my family could transfer the ticket, but somehow they had managed to bypass those rules. Yesterday, when I was supposed to be on my way to the airport, my sister Ellie ended up with my boarding pass instead. While she was en route, our family received a distressing call from the police. They informed us that there had been an accident involving Ellie. She had impulsively tried to steer the taxi herself, distrusting the driver's route and anxious about missing her flight. This reckless act caused them to crash into a tree. Miraculously, Ellie escaped with minor scratches, but the taxi driver wasn't as fortunate. The impact was severe on his side, resulting in a broken arm and a deep gash on his forehead that required numerous stitches. He decided to press charges against Ellie for her role in the accident. Now, my parents faced the possibility of using their life savings to bail her out and settle with the cab driver to avoid a trial. When I learned about the accident, I blurted out that it was karma for how they had pressured me to give up my trip. The words slipped out in the heat of the moment, and I instantly regretted them. My parents were shocked and scolded me, saying that such a situation was no joking matter. They told me that once spoken, words couldn't be taken back, and now they saw me as selfish. This accusation stung, especially since they had previously insisted the trip would be wasted on me. I tried to remind them of their own harsh words, but they refused to engage with me further and left for the hospital. Angered and frustrated by the hypocrisy and constant undervaluation, I made a snap decision. Why should I sacrifice my happiness for a family that would never appreciate me? I hastily packed some essentials, called a cab, and followed my parents to the hospital. When I arrived, I found Ellie still talking to the police, trying to deflect blame. I approached her to ask about the boarding pass. She was disoriented, perhaps from the shock and the events at the hospital. Seizing the moment, I rummaged through her purse, found the boarding pass, and, without a word, took it back. I was determined to reclaim my trip and experience life on my own terms, far from the drama and the constant undermining at home. In a whirlwind of confusion and determination, I made a dash back to the cab and sped off towards the airport. I barely made it in time, slipping into my seat on the flight just before takeoff. As the plane lifted off, I was finally on my way to New Zealand, distancing myself from the drama unfolding back home. I kept my phone off during the flight, disconnecting from any incoming messages or calls. It wasn't until I landed in New Zealand that I turned my phone back on and discovered a slew of messages detailing just how upset my family was with me. My parents accused me of being insensitive, given that Ellie had just been in a significant accident, one she caused, though they seemed to conveniently overlook that detail. Meanwhile, Ellie felt betrayed, believing I had snatched this opportunity from her, despite the fact that she had initially taken it from me. The irony was lost on no one. The consensus among my family was clear. They believed I had acted wrongly and expected an apology from me. Ellie also mentioned in her messages that our parents would now need to dip into their savings to settle with the taxi driver. This made me reflect on whether I should have stayed and supported my family financially instead of indulging in this trip. I found myself grappling with feelings of guilt, wondering if my actions were indeed selfish. People have asked for more clarity on certain points, so let me explain a bit more. Regarding the boarding pass and the ticket transfer, it seems there was no real plan from Ellie or my parents. They probably hoped to figure things out at the airport, which inadvertently worked in my favor when I reclaimed my boarding pass. As for why I hadn't chosen to live with my grandparents or move away from my family's toxic environment, it's complicated. I've grown accustomed to this treatment over the years. While it's far from acceptable, it fostered in me a hope that by doing better, I might finally earn their approval, though this was a misplaced and self-sacrificial belief. Despite the repeated disappointments and emotional strain, a part of me still clung to the hope of winning their affection, a sentiment many children can relate to when dealing with familial favoritism. Additionally, my grandparents live far from the city, away from everything I know. The idea of moving in with them, while seemingly a solution, felt like stepping into an entirely new world, one I was not prepared to navigate alone. Thus, despite everything, I stayed, tethered by a mix of hope, familiarity, and an underlying loyalty to my family. Now, here in New Zealand, away from it all, I ponder these decisions, wondering if the distance might finally offer me a new perspective on what family and self-worth really mean. Despite having considered it many times, I never wanted to drastically change my life by moving away to live with my grandparents. They, along with everyone else outside our immediate family, are unaware of how my parents treat me. We're skilled at keeping up appearances, which made it hard for me to think about leaving. However, now that I'm an adult, I realize that I don't need to keep trying to please others at the expense of my own happiness. As for my relationship with my sister, Ellie, we've never been close. There's no animosity, we simply don't connect. She's always been the one in the passenger seat, both literally during family road trips and metaphorically in life. Her need for control was vividly illustrated when she grabbed the steering wheel from her cab driver, thinking she knew a better route to the airport, which led to the accident. Financially, our family is on the lower end of the income spectrum. My mom is executive assistant and my dad is a drill team coach, and they often rely on financial help from my grandparents. The current situation with the cab driver and the legal issues might force them to be more transparent with my grandparents about their actions. Many have asked why Ellie was in the passenger seat of the cab, and honestly, it seems to be out of habit and perhaps her controlling nature. She left for the airport nearly 3 hours early, which shows her anxiety about control and planning. After pondering over the situation for a few days, I decided to fully embrace and enjoy my trip to New Zealand. This might be one of the last opportunities for such an adventure before college and adult responsibilities take hold. My family are all adults. They can manage their own affairs without my intervention. It's not my fault they tried to claim something that wasn't theirs and face the consequences. I've also taken a big step by discussing my home situation with my grandparents the first time I've opened up to anyone about the partiality and mistreatment I faced growing up. Even my closest friends were unaware. Sharing this with my grandparents was liberating. They were shocked and supportive, validating my feelings and experiences. This conversation has shown me the importance of voicing my struggles and not bearing them silently. Now, I'm focusing on making the most of my time in New Zealand, exploring, learning, and living life to the fullest. For a long time, I kept my struggles to myself, believing that if I continued to be the obedient daughter, my parents would eventually recognize and appreciate my efforts. However, after opening up to my grandparents, it became painfully clear that this recognition would never come. During our conversation, they were incredibly supportive and made it clear that they wanted me to live with them after my trip to New Zealand. They even offered to cover all my college expenses since I'd chosen an out-of-state college. This was a huge relief, especially since my parents had previously stated they couldn't fund my education, having already paid for my sister Ellie's college, leaving me to fend for myself. The clarity and support from my grandparents were all I needed to turn my life around. With their help, I wouldn't have to worry about my living situation upon returning from New Zealand. Given the tension with my parents who were clearly upset with my decisions, I doubted a warm welcome back home. When my trip ended a few days ago, I moved straight into my grandparents' house. They had prepared the guest room for me, and to my surprise, they had already moved my belongings from my parents' house. My grandparents welcomed me warmly, a stark contrast to the environment I had left. They told me they had confronted my parents about the long-standing mistreatment I'd endured. This confrontation coincided with a discussion about the accident involving Ellie, as my parents were desperate to avoid using their savings for a hefty settlement with the taxi driver, given the looming threat of a trial amplified by dashcam footage of Ellie causing the accident. My grandparents' visit to my parents was initially intended to discuss the financial aid for Ellie's situation. However, they prioritized addressing the unfair treatment I had received throughout my life. At first, my parents tried to deflect the conversation to focus solely on Ellie's legal troubles, but my grandparents persisted, forcing them to acknowledge their behavior towards me. This bold move by my grandparents was a turning point, ensuring that my voice was heard and my grievances acknowledged. Now, living with my grandparents, I feel a sense of security and validation that was absent in my previous home. I am grateful for their unconditional support and am looking forward to starting this new chapter of my life under their care, away from the unfair pressures of my past. While I was in New Zealand living what felt like the best days of my life, it seemed unnecessary to dwell on the unresolved issues back home. However, my grandparents, wanting to address and understand the full extent of the situation, insisted on discussing it. During this conversation, my parents eventually admitted that they believed I deserved the treatment I had received because, according to them, I had abandoned my family during a crisis. They claimed my actions at the hospital where I retrieved my flight ticket and left for my trip showed that I was indifferent to Ellie's accident and the family's distress. They even accused me of being jealous of Ellie, asserting that she had always outperformed me in everything, and therefore my feelings of neglect were unfounded. My parents described me as entitled and spoiled and declared they were done indulging such behavior. Upon hearing this, my grandparents made a decisive move to distance themselves and me from this toxic environment. They argued with my parents, who then coldly suggested that if my grandparents were so concerned, they should take me with them. My grandparents didn't hesitate. They arranged to move my belongings to their home, making it clear that they were now my primary support system. After arriving back and settling into my new home with my grandparents, they recounted the entire ordeal. Hearing how readily my parents had dismissed me was heartbreaking. Despite knowing deep down that my parents had never truly supported or understood me, it was still a painful realization that they were all I had known for 19 years. The whole situation made me incredibly emotional. I was devastated yet grateful that my grandparents stood by me through everything. Now, I have no illusions about where I stand. I'm living with my grandparents, and this is my new home. They have promised to support me not just emotionally but financially as well, covering all my college expenses. Since returning, I haven't been in contact with my parents or Ellie. I had avoided checking my messages during my trip to keep myself from falling into a worse mental state. Today, I felt strong enough to look at those messages, and unsurprisingly, they were filled with accusations of selfishness and entitlement from Ellie. She expressed relief at no longer having to deal with me, which ironically mirrored my feelings towards her. At this point, the hurtful words from my parents don't even shock me anymore. It's a sad reflection of our entire relationship. But now, with my grandparents' unwavering support, I feel secure and ready to move forward. The toxicity that once overshadowed my daily life is behind me, and I'm focusing on building a future where I am valued and loved, far away from the negativity that once consumed me. After my trip to New Zealand, I received a few messages from my parents criticizing my actions as heartless. They expressed regret for not intervening when I rushed to the hospital to retrieve my boarding pass, suggesting that their failure in raising me properly allowed me to act impulsively. They lamented that despite providing a comfortable life ensuring I was fed, clothed, and educated, I still found reasons to complain about my upbringing. They accused me of jealousy towards my sister Ellie and unjustly casting them as villains. Their harshest words declared that they viewed me as a waste of their time and effort, and they were relieved to be rid of me. These messages hurt deeply, but I had resolved, after talking with my grandparents, not to let their harsh words affect me anymore. So, I blocked them to prevent any further emotional harm and decided it was time to start my healing journey, aiming to move past the trauma and live my best life, though I knew it would be challenging. 3 weeks after returning from my trip, I still hadn't heard anything about my parents or Ellie's situation with the cab driver. I assumed they were still grappling with how to settle the matter financially. Then, unexpectedly, my parents showed up at my grandparents' house. They ignored me as they entered and made their way to the living room. Caught off guard, I lingered awkwardly, but my grandparents motioned for me to join the discussion. Their presence at the table was a clear signal that they supported me, regardless of my parents' likely displeasure. As we all sat down, the tension was palpable. My grandparents initiated the conversation by asking my parents the purpose of their unexpected visit, given that their last interaction had been strained. My parents, maintaining their stern demeanor, began to discuss their current predicament. They were still struggling to gather the funds needed for an out-of-court settlement with the cab driver, who was demanding a substantial amount due to the accident. Throughout this discussion, I remained silent, observing the dynamics and noting how my grandparents handled the situation with a calm and firm stance, reinforcing their commitment to protect and support me in this family crisis. This situation underscored a new chapter in my life, where I no longer lived under my parents' shadow, but was supported by my grandparents, who provided a safe and affirming environment. It was a poignant reminder that while moving on from familial trauma is difficult, it is possible with the right support and personal resolve. When my parents arrived at my grandparents' house, the atmosphere was tense. They made it clear they wanted nothing more to do with my grandparents because they were supporting my decisions. However, before severing ties completely, my parents claimed they had some financial matters to settle. They presented a document detailing the substantial amount of money they claimed to have spent on raising me, asserting that since my grandparents had taken on parental responsibilities, They should now reimburse them almost $200,000. The audacity of the demand left me speechless. It seemed a desperate attempt to diminish us. My grandparents excused themselves to discuss the situation privately, leaving me in an uncomfortable silence with my parents, who pointedly ignored my presence. When my grandparents returned, they maintained their composure. My grandfather stated they would accept the responsibility and repay the amount my parents had spent on me. I was about to protest, feeling this was unjust since my parents were merely fulfilling their obligations, not doing me a favor. However, my grandparents silenced me with a gesture, then proposed a condition. They would pay, but only if my parents repaid every penny they had borrowed over the years from them. The response caught my parents off guard. The look on their faces was one of total surprise, akin to deer caught in headlights. Unable to contain my amusement at their predicament, I excused myself to avoid bursting into laughter. I stayed in my room until after my parents had left. Curious about the outcome, I later learned from my grandparents that my parents had tried to argue, but found themselves cornered by the logic of the situation. In the end, they left angrily, cursing, and clearly humiliated. My grandparents assured me that they wouldn't likely return anytime soon after this debacle. This incident reinforced my belief that leaving for New Zealand had been the right decision. Now, with my departure for college on the horizon, I am looking forward to starting a new chapter. The support from my grandparents has been unwavering, and their ability to handle my parents' antics has proven that they are more than capable of protecting both me and themselves. The fact that my father is their only son does not soften their resolve. They stand firm in their principles. As for me, I am just excited to embrace the future, grateful for the freedom and support to pursue my dreams. My husband made a tough but necessary decision to distance himself from his toxic mother and sister after they shockingly demanded that we give up our dream home to accommodate his unemployed sister, her husband who struggles with gaming addiction, and their 4 children. The unhealthy dynamic between my in-laws and my husband has increasingly impacted our lives. Growing up, my husband was the clear favorite, the proverbial golden child deeply adored by his mother, Mil. Although his father was often busy with work, his mother spent a great deal of time with him, creating a close bond. On the other hand, his sister, Mia, didn't receive the same level of attention, which I believe has led to some underlying tensions. Despite this, my husband has always strived to be a supportive older brother, often stepping in to help Mia. However, both Mil and Mia have exhibited behavior that crosses boundaries. When William and I began dating, he had just graduated from college and was living in the same house as his family, who had given him his own floor for privacy. This arrangement allowed him to invite me over, including for overnight stays. Unfortunately, Mia frequently intruded into our room in the mornings without knocking, sometimes catching us underdressed, and would start casual conversations as if nothing was amiss. This lack of privacy was quite unsettling for me. Understanding that living with his family could lead to less privacy, I still found it inappropriate for Mia to enter without knocking. It was a basic courtesy that was sorely missing. I discussed this with William, and he agreed to install a lock on his door for our privacy. The next morning, Mia tried to barge in, only to find the door locked. She reacted angrily, accusing us of excluding her, and even resorted to name-calling, which was both shocking and hurtful. William explained that the lock was his idea to prevent such intrusions and maintain our privacy, emphasizing that it wasn't about keeping secrets from her. Despite his explanation, Mia blamed me for the change, claiming I was driving a wedge between her and her brother. This culmination of disrespectful and unreasonable demands led my husband to finally set boundaries with his mother and sister, prioritizing our well-being and the health of our relationship. It was a difficult choice, but necessary to protect the peace and privacy of our new life together. Dealing with confrontation is really tough for me, so when William's sister started yelling during one of my visits, I found it overwhelming and excused myself to the bathroom. From there, I could still hear her shouting while William tried to calm her down. Once she left, William came to check on me, apologized for her behavior, and promised he'd talk to her about apologizing to me as well. True to his word, she did apologize the next weekend I visited, albeit with a feeble excuse that she needed to urgently discuss something with William, which she thought justified her intrusion. William made it clear to her that she should respect our privacy, to which she meekly agreed. Although that particular issue was resolved, her intrusive behavior was part of a pattern. Whenever William and I had a minor disagreement, even about trivial things like movie choices, if his sister was around, she'd suggest that William should date someone more similar to him, hinting that we weren't a good match. William would give her a disapproving look, but she'd just smirk in response. Another troubling habit of hers was to ask me probing, uncomfortable questions about my past relationships, trying to undermine my self-esteem with comments comparing me unfavorably to William's ex-girlfriends. These uncomfortable interactions happened whenever we were alone, and over time, I began to see them as her attempts to belittle me. Initially, I kept quiet, but one day, fed up, I retorted that I preferred my ex-boyfriend's family because they weren't as nosy or overbearing as William's. This response seemed to take her by surprise and momentarily stopped her taunts. My statement, harsh as it was, reflected the strained dynamics I endured since entering William's life. Initially, his mother Mil ignored me, but as our relationship progressed, she started to behave as if I was stealing her son. During family gatherings, she would deliberately overlook my presence. William noticed this and attempted to address it with her, but she remained unchanged in her demeanor. Mil even labeled me as stuck-up and spoiled, attributing this to my private school education, contrasting with her background as a special education teacher. She even tried to dissuade William from marrying me, urging him to find a better partner. Despite this, William proposed to me, disregarding his mother's and sister's opinions. When they learned of our engagement, both Mil and his sister panicked and reached out to me, suggesting that marrying William was a mistake, and that I should end the relationship and return the engagement ring. Their suggestion felt absurd and intrusive, especially since my feelings for William were genuine, and I was committed to building a life with him. When Mil and Mia realized they couldn't convince me to end my relationship with William, their attitudes shifted. Mil begrudgingly told me that I should strive to be the best wife for William and take care of him just as she had done over the years. While I found her words a bit offensive, I chose not to dwell on them too much. On the other hand, Mia went on the offensive, accusing me of being a gold digger and claiming that William deserved someone of higher status. She even threatened to expose me before the wedding to prevent us from marrying. Feeling overwhelmed, I immediately discussed the situation with William. He was shocked by the harshness of his family's comments. William argued with them, but Mil and Mia remained firm in their belief that I wasn't good enough for him. Despite their opinions, William reassured me that he loved me regardless of what his family thought. Although his support was comforting, I was still hurt by the lack of acceptance from his family. When it came to planning our wedding, William and I had decided to cover the costs ourselves. So, when Mil offered to pay for half of the expenses, we declined, explaining how hard we had worked to save for this occasion. Instead of being pleased for us, Mil took it as a slight and lamented about how she felt she was no longer needed. Fortunately, William's dad was supportive and proud of us, a stark contrast to his wife and daughter. To ease the tension, we suggested that Mil organize the rehearsal dinner, which she agreed to do. We appreciated her involvement, hoping it would mend some of the rifts. However, as the wedding approached, things took a troubling turn. Mia invited herself to dinner with us, claiming she missed her brother. Since William and I were living on our own by then, we agreed, thinking she genuinely wanted to spend time with him. William asked me if I was comfortable with her joining us, and though I was hesitant, I agreed to avoid being rude to my future sister-in-law. During dinner, Mia suddenly started discussing her disdain for cheating partners, stating they were nothing but worthless. Her comments seemed to come out of nowhere, and we were puzzled by her abrupt shift in conversation. Then Mia turned to me and asked how it felt to be a useless piece of trash. Confused, I was shocked when she began accusing me of having an affair with a coworker named Zach. William was taken aback and demanded to know what Mia was talking about. Mia triumphantly pulled out photos of me with Zach, waving them around and insisting she had caught me cheating. I knew I had never been unfaithful to William, so I was curious about why Mia thought I was involved with Zach. Looking at the photos, they seemed innocuous. Kevin and I were close colleagues, but only because we had started at the company around the same time and supported each other to avoid mistakes. Kevin was in a committed relationship, which William was aware of. I didn't have a lock on my phone and had always been open with William about my coworkers. The photos Mia had taken, showing me with my colleagues in casual settings, were being twisted into evidence of an imaginary affair. I was furious that she was trying to damage my reputation and jeopardize my relationship with William with these false claims. Before I could defend myself, William, clearly shocked and upset, stepped in. He asked Mia why she was following me and taking pictures of me with my coworkers without anyone's consent. Mia tried to justify her actions by saying she wanted to investigate me because she didn't believe I was of the right status and was worried I was marrying William just for his money. William firmly told Mia that her accusations were unfounded and that she was creating unnecessary drama. He urged her to stop spreading lies and causing harm to our relationship. Despite his attempts to reason with her, Mia continued to yell that there was an obvious affair. I tried to explain that we were just colleagues, but she refused to believe me. The situation escalated and I finally had enough. I told Mia that I would file a police report against her for illegally taking my pictures and stalking me. Her face turned pale as she asked if I was serious. I told her that I had evidence of her unauthorized surveillance and attempts to defame me with her ridiculous lies. Mia then pleaded with William, saying she had only acted out of concern for him, and that filing a case would damage her career and future. I told Mia that if she stayed out of my life, I wouldn't file the report. Realizing there was no other way out, Mia reluctantly agreed to stay away from me. William supported me and told Mia she should be grateful I was willing to drop the issue. Since then, Mia and I haven't spoken, though William still maintains a relationship with her. The second incident happened the night before our wedding during the rehearsal dinner. MIL had insisted on organizing it herself and refused our offers to help with the preparations. When we arrived, it was clear that the event wasn't up to our expectations. The dinner was held on picnic tables covered with plastic tablecloths, and the food was cold Mexican fare. MIL seemed visibly upset throughout the evening, which made the celebration feel uncomfortable. As the night went on, she got drunk and began acting inappropriately, further souring the mood of what was supposed to be a joyful occasion. During the rehearsal dinner, things took a turn for the worse. MIL, who had insisted on handling the event herself, made a point of complaining to the other guests about how stressful the wedding planning had been, even though she hadn't contributed financially or been involved in the preparations. Her negative attitude and public complaints made the evening uncomfortable. Eventually, my father-in-law had had enough and decided to escort her out. Mia tried to defend her mother's behavior, but my father-in-law wasn't having any of it. The whole situation was a complete disaster, and I was worried that these two women might ruin our wedding the next day. That night, William and I had our first major argument. I told him firmly that he needed to uninvite both Mia and MIL from the wedding because their behavior made it clear they would do something to upstage us. William was adamant that he wouldn't do that and promised he would keep his father in check to ensure they wouldn't cause trouble. In response, I gave William an ultimatum. If he didn't uninvite his mother and sister, there wouldn't be a wedding the next day. William was shocked by my demand. I knew it sounded harsh, but I was deeply anxious about what MIL and Mia might do. I didn't want to face embarrassment in front of our friends and family on our special day. I hoped that this ultimatum would make William see just how much his family's behavior was affecting us. Fortunately, William understood and made the right choice. He called his father early the next morning to let him know that MIL and Mia were no longer invited. My father-in-law wasn't surprised and assured William that he would make sure they didn't show up uninvited. However, shortly after, MIL and Mia started calling William repeatedly, trying to convince him to let them attend the wedding. William stood his ground and told them that given their behavior towards me, he didn't feel comfortable having them at the wedding. MIL responded by criticizing me harshly, saying I was coming between her and her son, while Mia tried to reason with William as well. But William remained firm in his decision. I felt bad that William's father couldn't attend the wedding because of his wife and daughter, and I was genuinely sorry for putting William in such a difficult position. However, my feelings of guilt dissipated when I learned from William's cousins that Mil and Maya had planned to wear white dresses to our wedding. They had even suggested in a family WhatsApp group that other women wear white too, arguing that there was no reason for the bride to be the only one in white. I was appalled by how low they were willing to go to hurt me. Knowing this made me even more relieved that they were uninvited. The wedding went off without a hitch, and no one tried to upstage us. Mil and Mia stopped speaking to me entirely after that, which was a relief. They would occasionally invite William over for dinner or special occasions, but I didn't mind. My father-in-law, on the other hand, remained kind and supportive. Over the years, William and I stayed in touch with his family, even though things had been strained. We meticulously saved our money and, this year, we finally bought our very first home. We were thrilled to own such a significant property. When we had a small housewarming party, his parents and Mia came over for a visit. To avoid them, I spent the day with my own family, enjoying some quality time with my parents. The main issue began last month when, unexpectedly, my mother-in-law called me. This was a huge surprise because we hadn't spoken since William and I got married. She casually inquired about my well-being and how life was going. I was taken aback by her sudden interest, but answered her questions politely. She then asked how it felt to live in such a large house with just William and me. Her comment stung because William and I had been trying to start a family for a long time. Unfortunately, due to infertility issues, we hadn't been successful in getting pregnant. We had both come to terms with the possibility that we might not be able to have children of our own. I had even told William that if he wanted to divorce me to find someone else who could give him a family, he was free to do so. But William had always reassured me that he was committed to our relationship, and that being childless together was perfectly fine, as long as we had each other. William's family knew about our situation, so Mil's comment felt especially hurtful. She then dropped another bombshell. Mia was pregnant with her fourth child. I was shocked, especially considering her husband's lack of responsibility. William had told me that Mia's husband was unemployed and spent most of his time gaming, leaving Mia to juggle multiple part-time jobs while he did nothing around the house. Despite numerous conversations with her about leaving him, Mia never took action. Mil continued, suggesting that since Mia could no longer work through her pregnancy, it would be a good idea for us to give up our house. She claimed that the house was too big for a childless couple like us, and that Mia and her family deserved to live in a larger home. Since Mil didn't have the space at her own house, she proposed that Mia and her family move in with us. I was stunned by this request and struggled to find the right words. I asked Mil if she was joking, but she insisted she was serious. She felt that we should make room for Mia and her family. I tried to explain that this was our home, and the idea of someone moving in with us so suddenly, without even asking for our consent, was both intrusive and unreasonable. Despite my efforts to make her understand, Mil and Mia seemed to be pressing the issue, showing no regard for our feelings or boundaries. It was clear that they were more focused on their own needs than on respecting our new home and our space. My mother-in-law had already spoken with William about her request, and to my disbelief, William had agreed to it. This struck me as odd because William and I always shared everything with each other. I was certain that if he had agreed to let Mia and her family move in with us, he would have told me about it. I was taken aback that he had made such a significant decision without consulting me first. I told Mil firmly that since the house belonged to both William and me, he couldn't give permission on his own. No one could move in without both of us agreeing to it. To find a compromise, I offered to host Mia and her family for a few days, but I made it clear that I wouldn't agree to have them live with us permanently. Mil responded by yelling at me, saying that as a dutiful daughter-in-law, it was my responsibility to make space for Mia and her family. She even suggested that if I complied with her demands, all our past issues would be forgiven. In frustration, I shot back, saying, "Sure, I'll be happy to let them stay, but since we're still paying for this house, I know Mia and her husband won't contribute to the mortgage or the bills. If you want them to move in, you should take some responsibility and help cover their expenses. If you could pay the mortgage, that would be a start, and we could handle the bills. Since you only have one job, when are you planning to get a second one to cover the costs?" MIL erupted in anger, accusing me of being unreasonable. I replied that it was just as unreasonable for her to expect us to support Mia's family without any help. The conversation ended with her hanging up on me, clearly frustrated that I wasn't giving in to her demands. Shortly after, Mia called me, fuming about my request for her mother to help pay the mortgage. She accused me of being a gold digger. I countered by saying that it was she who was being unreasonable, trying to move in with us without offering any help. I told her that if she wanted to see who the real gold digger was, she should look at her partner, who did nothing to support her. Mia's anger seemed to subside after that, and I stood firm, telling her that I would not allow her family to move in unless they contributed to the mortgage. She accused me of being heartless and prioritizing money over family, but I felt a sense of relief and empowerment for standing up for myself and asserting control over my home. My husband and I need to have a serious conversation about how his mother, MIL, has been handling things. It's become clear that this situation has dragged on far too long. It's frustrating how MIL has been deceitful, manipulating her own son just to get her way. Sil, my sister-in-law, is basically a pawn in this scheme, following her mother's orders in hopes that MIL will favor her more. MIL has always been very partial to William, and now Sil is just playing along with whatever her mother wants, seeing it as a way to benefit from us. In this scenario, Sil stands to gain a lot since she would rely on us to cover her bills and take care of her children, while her husband, who doesn't contribute, does nothing. I'm waiting for William to return from his travel blogger so we can discuss this in person. This isn't something I want to handle over the phone. It's too important. It's been 5 days since, as planned, when William returned, we finally had the chance to sit down and talk. I explained to him everything that had happened with his mother, how MIL had called me, demanding that we give up our house for Sil and her family. William was clearly shocked and unaware of the full extent of the situation. He only knew that his sister was pregnant but had no idea MIL would make such outrageous demands. I told William firmly that I needed him to handle this situation with his mother because I couldn't manage it on my own. He agreed and called MIL in front of me to confront her about her deception. When William asked why she had lied and taken matters into her own hands, MIL tried to backtrack. She claimed she hadn't exactly lied but believed he would have no problem with Sil moving in, so she decided to approach me directly. William stopped her and asked why she assumed he'd be okay with it. MIL explained that because he and Sil were close, she thought he'd want to help her by allowing her family to live with us. Hearing this, I felt a mix of frustration and resignation, but stayed silent, allowing William to handle his mother. William firmly told MIL that we would not allow Sil, her husband, and their 4 children to move in with us. He said she had no right to force us into such a situation, and that if Sil needed help, MIL should take responsibility herself. MIL started yelling, claiming that Sil really needed support and trying to argue that since we had a large house, it would be easy for us to help out. She even suggested that, since I was childless, helping Sil's children could be fulfilling for me. I was stunned by her insensitivity, but the real shock came when I saw William's reaction. He was visibly enraged and told MIL that it was unacceptable to use my personal situation against me to coerce us into taking care of Sil's family. He firmly stated that his father, Stephen, didn't want any part of this and that our home was not a solution for Sil's housing issues. William made it clear that Mill had overstepped and that we would not be manipulated into taking on this burden. William was fed up with how his sister and mother were treating us. He was done with the disrespect and manipulation. When MIL tried to minimize her actions and backtrack, William didn't hold back. He told her that despite his efforts to maintain a good relationship with them, their behavior towards me was unacceptable. He said that our home was our private space and anyone who disrespected me also disrespected him. With those firm words, he ended the call, leaving no room for further discussion. Since then, he's had no contact with MIL or Sil. Stephen did reach out to talk to William and, after hearing the full story, understood why William made such a tough decision. He called me to apologize on behalf of his wife, but I assured him it wasn't his fault. It's been an eventful 3 weeks. Many people suggested installing security cameras around my house to prevent any unwanted visits from MIL and Sil. I followed their advice, ordered cameras online, and set them up around the property. As luck would have it, they decided to show up last weekend while I was home alone. I saw them on the camera feed and immediately called William. He said he was on his way. When I opened the door, there they were, Mil and Sil, looking furious. They demanded to be let in, but I stood my ground. I told them they could speak to me from outside and refused to let them enter. Mil started shouting, accusing me of being heartless, greedy, and selfish. I calmly told her that this was our home, and they had no right to barge in uninvited. Mil continued her tirade, unaware that every word was being recorded by the cameras. I reminded her of our previous conversation and reiterated that I wouldn't give up our home for Sil and her family. I told her that if she had more to discuss, she would have to wait for William to return. Sil began yelling about how I was breaking up the family and being stubborn. She claimed I was a gold digger, trying to take her brother away from them. I informed them that everything they were saying was being recorded and that I would use the footage to obtain a restraining order against them, which would keep them at least 60 feet away from our property. Their eyes widened in shock at the threat. Mil yelled that I wouldn't dare take such action, but I smirked and told her that if they didn't leave immediately, she'd be receiving a legal order very soon. This threat seemed to scare them into leaving, and Sil's protests faded as they retreated from our property. Mil and Sil were insisting that I was overreacting and that their visit wasn't a big deal. Just as their accusations were getting more intense, William arrived. He walked up to us with a calm demeanor and immediately asked Mil what they were doing here. When Mil rushed to hug him, he gently but firmly pulled away and repeated his question. Sil tried to justify their presence by claiming they were here to confront me because they believed I was trying to control William's life. She argued that they were just trying to address what they saw as my interference. I couldn't help but roll my eyes at how absurd their excuses sounded. William cleared things up quickly. He told them, in no uncertain terms, that he was the one who had decided to cut off contact with them. It wasn't my influence or control, it was his choice. Mil began begging William to forgive her, but he remained firm. He told them they needed to leave immediately, or he would call the police. Their shock was palpable. Clearly, they hadn't expected William to take such a strong stance. William warned them that if they ever showed up at our house again, we would not hesitate to call the police and have them removed by force. Their faces fell as they realized he meant business. But William didn't care. He was resolute, and I felt a deep sense of relief seeing him finally stand up for us. Once they left, still visibly angry, William reached out to his father, Stephen. Stephen was just as stunned as we were by Mil and Sil's unannounced visit. He agreed that we had been right not to let them in and expressed his own frustration with their behavior. I'm confident that with William taking such a strong position, Mil and Sil won't dare to come back. If they do, I'm prepared to contact a lawyer and issue a formal notice. It's been a tough situation, but I'm glad William is now fully aware of how toxic his family is. I hope this is the last update I'll need to make, as I'm eager to move on and enjoy a peaceful life with my husband.
I, a 26-year-old woman, and my husband William, age 29, shared a bond built over nearly 5 years of marriage, founded on mutual respect and deep affection. We first crossed paths at the office where I was office manager, and he, with his greater experience, became a supportive figure in my professional life. William was aware of my challenging upbringing with parents who struggled with addiction, leading me to work multiple jobs and strive relentlessly for a better life. After moving out for college, I severed ties with my parents and frequently changed my contact details to maintain my distance from them. William's kindness was evident from the start. He was always considerate, noticing even the minor details like the small holes in my shirt and discreetly replacing it to spare me any potential embarrassment at work. He understood my frugal habits, which stemmed from a childhood marked by scarcity, and would bring extra lunch to share, ensuring I had a proper meal. His thoughtfulness made falling in love with him effortless. Despite our loving relationship, the only strain was his family's attitude towards me. Coming from a background of significant wealth, William's family had certain prejudices. They were initially cold. His mother barely acknowledged me, and his sister Mia gave me disdainful looks. which made me feel out of place. Despite their chilly reception, I tried to connect with them, complimenting their home and engaging in conversations about their interests. Our lives took a dramatic turn when I accidentally overheard a conversation between William and his sister Mia. They were planning to give one of our twins to my infertile sister-in-law as a birthday present. Shocked and devastated by the betrayal, I took immediate action to protect my children. I left him, filed for divorce, and relocated to a different city, ensuring the safety and well-being of my twins away from a situation where they were seen not as beloved children, but as gifts to be given away. This decision, while painful, was necessary to safeguard the future of my family from a plan that treated my children as mere objects rather than the cherished beings they are to me. Despite my lack of interest in art, William's mother's dismissive comments stung deeply during our family dinner. Throughout the evening, William would gently squeeze my hand, silently urging me to stay calm amidst the tension. His mother had arranged the seating to keep me separate from William, placing me next to his cousin Kevin, who was refreshingly open-minded and engaged me in pleasant conversation. Meanwhile, Mia and their mother hovered around William, excluding me from their discussions. At one point, Mia deliberately brought up one of William's ex-girlfriends, boasting about her current good looks and even showing William photos of her in bikinis from a recent trip. William protested, but Mia only laughed, teasing him about rekindling old flames. The situation grew increasingly awkward, and Kevin tried to intervene, only to be rebuffed by William's mother, adding to the discomfort. Thankfully, William excused us from the table under the pretense of showing me his childhood room, offering a much-needed respite from the strained atmosphere. Once there, he apologized for his sister's behavior, explaining that she had always been overly involved in his dating life, even pushing him towards her friends. His genuine remorse was apparent, and although I was upset, I accepted his apology. We decided it was best to leave soon after. As we were leaving, William's father pulled me aside. His demeanor had softened, and he confessed that despite his initial skepticism, my sincere attempts to connect with the family had impressed him. He apologized for his earlier coldness and welcomed me into their home anytime, advising me not to take the harsh words of Mia and his wife to heart. His acceptance was comforting, but I knew winning over William's sister and mother would require significant effort. Our relationship challenges continued. For my birthday, William had planned a romantic beach picnic, which I eagerly anticipated. However, that morning, Mia urgently summoned William over a fabricated crisis. I encouraged him to attend to her, believing in the urgency of her call. It turned out to be a mere prank, and she even tried to convince William to stay the day with her instead. When he refused, wanting to honor our plans, she spitefully left, showing her true intentions. This ongoing pattern of interference and the earlier dinner episode painted a clear picture of the family dynamics I was up against. Despite the hurdles, William's support and his father's eventual acceptance gave me a glimmer of hope, though I remained cautious about the challenges that lay ahead in blending into William's complex family environment. So William's sister, Mia, orchestrated a situation where William would have an excuse to skip spending the day with me. This deceitful act infuriated William to the point that he ceased all communication with her for several months. During this silent period, Mia's frustration erupted in the form of hostile texts to me, accusing me of coming between her and her brother and even making alarming threats. Naturally, I showed these messages to William, which only deepened his anger. The tension between them only began to ease around Christmas, thanks to their brother Mill's intervention. William reluctantly agreed to forgive Mia, although she never apologized to me for her threatening behavior. When Mia decided to marry her boyfriend Brian at a young age, she initially didn't want to invite me to the wedding. She suggested William attend alone and mingle with her friends. However, William stood by me and refused to attend without me, forcing Mia to begrudgingly add me to the guest list. At the wedding, I wore a long pink floor-length dress that William and I had chosen together. William complimented me on how beautiful I looked, and several guests, including Kevin, echoed his sentiments. However, Mia later accused me of trying to steal the spotlight and attract male attention, despite other guests wearing similarly elegant attire. William attempted to calm her down, explaining that wasn't our intention, but she refused to see reason, and her resentment towards me intensified. Over the years, Mia, along with Mill and my sister-in-law, continued to degrade me by mocking my appearance, making derogatory comments about my weight, and ridiculing my family background in front of others. Their relentless disdain wore on my self-esteem, and by the 4th year of my relationship with William, I decided I had endured enough. I had a candid discussion with William and chose to disengage from attending family gatherings or responding to their provocative messages, which significantly improved my mental well-being. William understood and supported my decision, even though Mill accused me of being disrespectful for distancing myself. Despite the ongoing familial resistance, William proposed to me last year in a heartfelt and meticulously planned moment. I happily accepted. When he shared the news with his family, his father offered congratulations, but his mother's response was lukewarm, hinting at her continued reservations. However, she eventually offered a reluctant congratulation, perhaps recognizing that I was here to stay in William's life. Mia's reaction to our engagement was far more volatile, underscoring the deep-seated issues that still lingered within the family dynamics. Nonetheless, with William's unwavering support, I remained committed to building a future with him, focusing on the love and respect that defined our relationship rather than the discord sown by others. After William and I announced our engagement, Mia made her disapproval abundantly clear. She insinuated to William that I was only after his money, calling me a bloodthirsty gold digger. This accusation not only hurt but also surprised William, revealing to him just how low his sister's opinion of me had sunk. In response, he told her plainly that if she couldn't support his decision to marry me, she needn't attend the wedding. Their argument escalated from there, but surprisingly, within a couple of days, Mia sent me an apologetic text. It seems she and her brother Mill might have had a conversation that led her to realize she couldn't change William's mind about us. Understanding the dynamics of his family's wealth, I told William I was willing to sign a prenuptial agreement. My intention was never his wealth. I loved him for his kindness and support. I was content with my career and financial standing and felt no need to prove anything by taking his money. William appreciated my offer, but assured me he would never ask me to sign one, knowing my sincerity. As the wedding approached, I focused on looking my best, including sharing regular workout selfies on my private social media account, which were entirely appropriate. One day, William returned from a family dinner troubled, revealing that Mia and his mother had suggested that my fitness posts were a sign of infidelity, aiming to attract other men's attention. They even insinuated that this behavior was how cheating begins. William, affected by their words, hesitantly asked if I was being unfaithful. I was shocked and hurt by the accusation, but after I firmly denied it, he apologized, realizing he'd been influenced by his sister and mother's baseless claims. During our wedding planning, tensions escalated further. Mia expressed a desire to be a bridesmaid, but I declined given her previous actions and our strained relationship. Mel then called, rebuking me for excluding Mia, arguing it would look bad to their family. She even threatened to withdraw financial support for the wedding, leveraging her contribution against my decision. I reminded her that Mia had not included me in her wedding party either. This hypocrisy did not sway Mill, but I stood firm in my decision. When I relayed these conflicts to Willia, he consulted with Kevin, who reassured us that the funding for our wedding was secure, as it was his contribution, and Mill had no say in it. This support from Kevin was a relief amidst the ongoing family drama, allowing us to proceed with our plans, focused on celebrating our love, free from the unnecessary constraints and pressures imposed by Mia and Mill. I can only imagine the shock on Mill's face when she realized her attempts to manipulate our wedding plans had been thwarted. Our wedding went ahead as planned, free from any further drama or meddling from Mill and her sister. William and I have since enjoyed a strong and loving relationship, but recently, an unexpected development has left me feeling uncertain about the future. 5 months ago, I discovered I was pregnant with twins. William and I were overjoyed, as we had been hoping to start a family since our wedding. The news of expecting not 1, but 2 babies was like a dream come true. In his excitement, William wanted to share our joy through a family gathering, despite my preference for a quieter announcement, understanding his eagerness to celebrate becoming a father. At the party, when we announced the pregnancy, most family members were thrilled, coming over to congratulate us warmly. However, Mill and her daughter Mia reacted negatively, casting stern looks my way. Mia had married before us and had been trying to conceive for a while. I knew from William that she was struggling with infertility, a sensitive issue that made her quite emotional about her situation. Despite various suggestions from family members, including William, Brian, and Kevin, urging her to consider adoption, Mia was resistant, expressing a reluctance to adopt a child she felt was from an uncertain background. Understandably, Mia was upset during our announcement. Despite my awareness of her struggles, the public setting of the announcement seemed to exacerbate her pain. She abruptly left the gathering in tears, locking herself in the bathroom. This situation cast a pall over the celebration as William and Mill tried to coax her out. After about half an hour, Mia emerged with red, puffy eyes, confronted me directly, and expressed that I should have spoken to her privately before making such a public announcement, given her own inability to have children. I tried to explain that it was never my intention to hurt her, but she brushed off my explanation and left the party with Brian. Later, Mill criticized me, suggesting I had been insensitive. This incident has made me question the dynamics of our family relationships and how we can navigate such deeply personal and emotional challenges moving forward. I sympathize with Mia's pain as a woman and understand her feelings, but it also places me in a difficult position, balancing my happiness and the sensitivity required towards her situation. Mill criticized me after the party, accusing me of being selfish and insensitive to others' feelings. William, seeing how the event unfolded, apologized to me later and promised to clarify to Mill and Mia that the announcement was his idea, acknowledging that he had not fully considered how it might affect his sister. Despite this, I still felt a sense of remorse over Mia's situation, but William reassured me that I wasn't to blame. The following weekend, William visited his parents for dinner, a gathering I chose to skip, given my strained relations with his family. When William returned, he shared that he had apologized to Mia, who opened up about her painful journey through infertility, marked by countless medical procedures and many tearful nights. Hearing this, I felt a deep pang of guilt. Despite our past conflicts, it became clear that beneath the surface, Mia was a person in pain, deserving of empathy and understanding. Moved by this realization, I decided to reach out to Mia. I sent her a message apologizing for not informing her privately about the pregnancy before the public announcement. I expressed a desire to mend our relationship and start anew, especially with the twins on the way. To my surprise, Mia's response was warm and understanding. She thanked me for my gesture and acknowledged her part in our strained interactions. She even shared her genuine joy for my pregnancy and expressed a wish to support me during this special time in my life. Mia then offered to host a baby shower for me, a gesture that touched me deeply, especially since she mentioned she had never had the opportunity to organize one before. I accepted her offer gratefully, and in the months that followed, I noticed a significant change in both Mia and my mother-in-law's attitudes towards me. They frequently checked in on my health, sent flowers, and cards with heartfelt messages, creating a newfound bond that brought us closer together. This shift not only eased past tensions, but also paved the way for a more harmonious family dynamic as we anticipated the arrival of the twins. It was incredibly jarring and somewhat unsettling to witness the dramatic shift in behavior from Mia and my mother-in-law. Until then, our relationship had been nothing short of tense, and their sudden display of affection felt completely out of character. Despite my underlying unease, I chose to view this change as a potential reconciliation effort, particularly with the twins on the way. I remained cautiously optimistic, hoping that we were indeed turning over a new leaf as a family. William continued his routine visits to his family every weekend, and on the surface, all seemed well. The day of the baby shower arrived, and I was genuinely impressed to see that Mia had taken my preferences into account while organizing the event. It was a beautiful gathering, more splendid than I had envisioned, with both friends and family, including the men, which was not typical for baby showers. Kevin even brought multiple gifts for the twins, adding to the festive spirit. The afternoon was filled with fun and games, and Mia was attentive and gracious, ensuring everything went smoothly. However, a disturbing incident occurred during the event. I excused myself to use the restroom, and as I was returning, I overheard a heated argument between William and Mill in the hallway. Their conversation was supposed to be private, and they hadn't noticed my presence. Curiosity piqued. I paused to listen, initially assuming they were discussing benign topics like baby names or nursery decorations. But as I listened more intently, a sinking feeling overwhelmed me. Mill was pressuring William about a serious matter involving our twins. She was insisting that William discuss their plan with me soon, a plan that shockingly involved giving one of our twins to Mia as a birthday present. William was trying to keep their voices down, aware of the potential for others to overhear. Mill was adamant, stating that time was running out and that William needed to man up and talk to me about it before the twins were born. She mentioned that William had already agreed to this arrangement under Mia's persistent demands, and now had no way out since Mia had been anticipating receiving a child for months. Hearing this, I was stunned and horrified. My heart pounded with a mixture of disbelief and dread as I processed the gravity of their conversation. The realization that such a plan was even being considered and that William had seemingly agreed to it without my knowledge struck me profoundly, shaking the very foundation of trust and partnership I thought we had built. Hearing the conversation about giving one of our twins to my sister-in-law as a birthday gift hit me like a ton of bricks. It felt like a physical blow, freezing me in place as they continued discussing their scheme as though it were perfectly normal. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, anger, hurt, sadness, but most overwhelmingly, a sense of deep betrayal. I had believed that William, Mill, and Sil were genuinely happy about our twins, about our family growing. Now, it was painfully clear that their joy was not about our family expanding, but about their twisted plan to take one of my babies away. At that moment, I felt a profound disconnect from my husband. How could he even contemplate such a thing? Our children were not items to be gifted, they were our flesh and blood. As they wrapped up their discussion, I stayed hidden until I was sure they wouldn't see me. Shaking with a mix of fear and anger, I managed to compose myself and return to the baby shower, though inside I was falling apart. Since that day, my mind has been consumed with figuring out how to protect my twins and escape this horrifying situation. The thought of my family being so callously treated by the people who were supposed to love them most made staying an impossibility. Despite my rage and the betrayal I felt, part of me wondered if I should confront William, give him a chance to explain himself before I tore our family apart. However, the more I thought about it, the more I realized how deep the deceit must run for him to even consider such a plan without my consent. I decided I didn't need to hear any explanations that might just serve to manipulate me further. Resolved to take action, I reached out to my best friend, who was as shocked as I was to learn about William's plot with his family. She immediately offered her support and helped me plan my departure. That night was my last in the house with William. The next morning, while he was at work, with the help of my friend, I packed up everything important and left without leaving a note or any explanation. He didn't deserve one. 3 weeks have passed since I moved out. I've since filed for divorce, a heart-wrenching but necessary decision to ensure the safety and well-being of my babies and myself. This was not how I envisioned my family's future. But now, with each passing day, I grow stronger, supported by friends and ready to begin a new chapter, free from the manipulations and schemes of William and his family. Leaving my husband was a heart-wrenching decision, a moment filled with a mix of fear and resolve as I stepped out of the doors of what was once our shared home. It was a scenario I never envisioned facing, yet the need to prioritize my safety and the well-being of my unborn children made it necessary. I've since initiated divorce proceedings, even as William has reached out repeatedly, unaware that I overheard his conversation with his mother. William's messages have been accusatory, suggesting I betrayed him and affirming his family's skeptical views of me. I've chosen not to respond, knowing that any explanation I offer would likely be twisted to fit their narrative. Instead, I've blocked his sister and mother to shield myself from further manipulation, though I feel a pang of guilt for not answering Kevin's calls, unsure of his involvement in the plot. These past days have been some of the hardest of my life, filled with tears and uncertainty. Thankfully, my best friend has been a constant source of support, reassuring me that leaving was the right decision for the safety of my children. She's dispelled my fears about being a bad mother and bolstered my resolve to forge a new path for myself and my twins. Looking ahead, I plan to return to work soon after giving birth. My friend, who works from home, has graciously agreed to babysit the twins during my work hours. I insist on compensating her for her time, aware that taking care of twins is no small task. This arrangement isn't permanent, but it will support me until I can secure child support and afford a nanny. Though this journey is daunting and I sorely wish I had the support of reliable parents, I'm grateful for the encouragement I've received from so many of you during this turbulent time. Leaving my husband was a heart-wrenching decision, a moment filled with a mix of fear and resolve as I stepped out of the doors of what was once our shared home. It was a scenario I never envisioned facing, yet the need to prioritize my safety and the well-being of my unborn children made it necessary. I've since initiated divorce proceedings. Even as William has reached out repeatedly, unaware that I overheard his conversation with his mother. William's messages have been accusatory, suggesting I betrayed him and affirming his family's skeptical views of me. I've chosen not to respond, knowing that any explanation I offer would likely be twisted to fit their narrative. Instead, I've blocked his sister and mother to shield myself from further manipulation, though I feel a pang of guilt for not answering Kevin's calls, unsure of his involvement in the plot. These past days have been some of the hardest of my life, filled with tears and uncertainty. Thankfully, my best friend has been a constant source of support, reassuring me that leaving was the right decision for the safety of my children. She's dispelled my fears about being a bad mother and bolstered my resolve to forge a new path for myself and my twins. Looking ahead, I plan to return to work soon after giving birth. My friend, who works from home, has graciously agreed to babysit the twins during my work hours. I insist on compensating her for her time, aware that taking care of twins is no small task. This arrangement isn't permanent, but it will support me until I can secure child support and afford a nanny. It's been 8 months since. A lot has happened. I have given birth to my beautiful twins, Jackson and Vinny. Becoming a mother has filled me with an indescribable joy and has reaffirmed my decision to provide a stable and loving environment for them. As I navigate this new chapter as a single mother, your support continues to be a pillar of strength for me. I was incredibly nervous before giving birth, but the moment I held my beautiful twins in my arms, all my fears dissipated. They became my entire world, and I knew then that I had made the right decision to distance us from what I now saw as a toxic family environment. The divorce from William was finalized shortly after, and despite his appeals, he was not granted custody. During the proceedings, he learned why I had left. He was stunned to discover I knew about his plan to give one of our children to his sister as a gift. He tried to justify his actions, claiming he was pressured by his family, but his excuses only deepened my disappointment in him. It turned out Kevin was aware of the plan and had tried, unsuccessfully, to sway the rest of the family against it. Learning this only solidified my disgust with them. Since the divorce, I haven't felt a shred of remorse for leaving William. I refused alimony, but secured substantial child support, which ensures I can provide well for our children. Mill and Sil made a dramatic scene at the divorce proceedings, accusing me of being a bad mother and selfishly keeping the twins from them. Their outburst required intervention from security and played a key part in my obtaining a restraining order against them. Since then, William has attempted to stay in contact, hoping for reconciliation, but the trust between us is irreparably broken. With the unwavering support of my best friend and a close-knit circle of friends and family, I've been navigating the challenges of single parenthood. Recently, I decided to move out of the city to escape the lingering influence of William's family. I want a fresh start in a new place where we can live free from interference and attempts by his family to contact my children. With full custody, I have the freedom to build a new life for us elsewhere, and I'm determined to make the most of this opportunity. Moving forward, my focus will be solely on my children and our future, ensuring we have the peace and happiness we deserve.